Yeah, we're off. Hi, guys.
Tissue, ear tissue, brain tissue, skin tissue, organ tissue, internal organ tissue.
Come on.
Hi, Captain Randy Cramer, United States Marine Corps Special Section, Covert Military Space Program arm of the Marine Corps.
How about we start off with what some of the projects you're working on? Can you comment about your regeneration beds?
Sure, the Holobed project is.
Hey, night, Tricky. Good to see you
we are
guys.
still in a planning stage. So my chief engineer and my business partner and I are in the, call it a final stage of venture capital that should get taken care of sometime this year. So that's about all. I don't necessarily want to say a bunch more than that until we have more to talk about, but let's just say that it is a project that continues to slowly, move along. We've been having issues mostly over the last few years getting venture capitalists to take the project seriously without an immediate short-term return on investment, which is what most everybody wants. But you kind of have to tell people that to develop something like this at the R&D phase, like no one's going to make any money from that. So people have to be willing to support the project without getting paid back right away, because that's just not how this part of the project works. The manufacturing phase is when people get paid back. So,
is it possible that maybe very wealthy individuals could purchase time in the regen bed to reagent cells to help fund the project?
Well, we're certainly open to discussing that possibility. But at this point, the people that we've talked to who wanted to drop, as individuals who wanted to drop large chunks of funding, don't just want time in the hollow bed. They want one of their own. And that's
Hey, boss. Good to see you, bro.
Will the med bed be able to regenerate, say, eye tissues or
anything? I can regenerate anything: eye tissue, ear tissue, brain tissue, skin tissue, organ tissue, internal organ tissue. Anything and everything. It was originally an Arcturan technology that we were purchasing from them until we could develop it ourselves, until we could essentially replicate the manufacturing ourselves. So when I was in the military, a lot of the holobed units that we used were actually manufactured off-world. They weren't necessarily ones that we make, but we definitely understand the manufacturing process now that we make our own for covert military space program activities, which is separate than what we're trying to do as a civilian operation to build them.
Can you become younger than 21?
You technically can be, but it's a technology that we're not going to want to do that with people, because in our test studies or special section within the test studies on such technology find that when you age reverse someone or recondition them to back when they're in their teens or their 20s, they tend to, you have a percentage anyway of people who go through that process who tend to start behaving like irresponsible adolescents again. So we kind of don't want to heap upon giving people a reason to behave more irresponsibly by looking in the mirror and going, "Woo, I'm 21 again. Let's start drinking."
Oh, man.
And then people start.
I've seen this Captain Randy Cramer before, and I don't know what he's talking about here, but he is involved in all the super soldier stuff. So let's just hear him out here.
reliving the mistakes of their 20s because they think they're in their
Yeah, I
20s
don't
which they
follow
kind of are. So, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that people are going to act in their best maturity and all of a sudden be a mature person in a 21-year-old body. They tend to become immature people in 21-year-old bodies. So our policy will not be to age reverse people pretty much, under 40. But this particular technology uses your genetic profile and restores cellular tissue to your genetic profile. It doesn't alter your genetic profile or give room to change your genetics at all. It uses your own genetic profile and will cause the cells in your body to simply conform and recondition themselves to your own genetic profile. So no purple hair. You can dye it purple.
Let me just jump ahead and see if he's getting off this topic. It sounds like a plug for money.
Like an internal skyscraper, like a giant internal parking garage. I mean,
yeah, okay, I'm going to change.
It's an interesting topic. We've gone into that before, and I know. Hello, everybody. James Rink here. Welcome to Super Soldier Talk. It is March 27th, 2019, and we are doing a continuation with Peter the Insider and Jessica Era Morocco about various topics. Now, last time we talked, we went to the New Zealand shooter, so this time we're going to go a little bit more into some about, I guess, we want to discuss about Umbrella Corporation, Antarctica, and maybe about some information about these crossbreeds. But first of all, let me go ahead and introduce Jessica again for people who are new to this show. Jessica is a interdimensional seer. She's part of the Numbers group, and she's an Akashic reader. Her website is readingsbyariel.com, and her YouTube is Jessica Ariel Morocco, and that's Arael. So, Jessica, welcome to the show. Are you there?
James, hi, how are you?
Great. Thank you for joining us. So you've been very, very patient. I know at least in the last couple of days we've done, this is like our third session. So thank you for being very generous with your time. Do you have any new updates you want to share? Anything new?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, there's a lot been going on. Peter and I have been talking about some of this strange, I don't know, Mandela effect or weird stuff going on because, Peter has more to share about it, but I had some strange things happen this weekend and last night again, too.
Okay. Well, we'll certainly go into the Mandela effect. That's always an interesting topic. We've gone into that before, and I know Peter's got a lot of insight about that as well. And of course, Peter is head of Division 12 of the Alien Contact Intelligence Organization, ACIO, or I guess the Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization, based in Pine Gap, and maybe Area 51 too. I guess you said you commuted between the two locations, but their role is to act as liaison between human and ET. So he's going to share some of his perspective, at least on some of these extra political situations that are going on in the planet. So Peter, are you there?
Yeah. Hello. Thank you for introducing me, and I just want to tell you that my website. They switched off my website. I'm talking they because it's technically in European Union, especially in Slovak Republic. Once you are doing fake news, you are spreading fake news and hate speech. You need to be permanently shut it down, like some sort of ban, and they did it on my webpage because they consider it as a fake news, So that's the.
Wow, that is peter-insider.com.
Yes, you are right, but they don't care about come or something. The problem is that it wasn't actually even in European, not in Slovak Republic, not even in European Union. Our servers are in Australia, but they consider it like harmful for appropriate information spreading according to European Union citizens. So this is official statement. Why our web
Okay, this one's not panning out too well either. Let me see if I can find something else along this super soldier talk.
site was shut it down. I am laughing at it because I can't take it serious. This.
Well, Peter, there's quite a few of people that listen to, the shows with James and Disclosures, and, they listen to you over in the Czech Republic. You still doing radio over there?
Yes, it is not only for Czech people, it is for Slovak people too. We are like approximate 16 millions of people, 10 and a half and 5.5. Yeah, but the stuff is that they cannot shut down theirs.
Okay, this looks good.
Well, hello everybody.
Hey,
Welcome
hey.
to Super Soldier Talk. I am
Good to
James
see
Rink,
ya.
and today I have a very special, exciting show for you. We have two guests that have been on our show before, but this time we're going to do a collaboration event together. And we've got Mary Beavers with us, and along with Dr. Johnny Delirious. I'm hearing some background noise. If somebody got their fan on,
I got air conditioning.
that's probably you. You could always just mute yourself, Johnny, when you're not talking. That would always work.
Okay.
So, we're gonna go into some of the a recall that Mary and Johnny have had in the 20-year back mission they did together. Additionally, we're also going to go into some crystal skulls that draw carvings that have, I guess, that you've come across recently, Dr. Johnny, and Mary's going to, as a linguistic, a cryptologic linguistic, she is going to give us some information on what some of these sigils and symbols mean. So, let me go ahead and read a little bit more of everybody's bio.
Yeah, tricky. I usually play it safe and have something backed up in case the videos aren't working out like expected, like is what just happened then. So I had this backed up. Also got another one, but I'm not sure. Goes for 2 hours. I'm not sure how true it is, so I didn't want to play that one yet. Let's see how legit this guy is now. He liked his stuff yesterday. Let's see how he does today.
And Mary served in the U.S. Army as a human intelligence asset analyst with cryptologic linguistic abilities. She has the unique ability of real-time memory or click coding intelligence, which allows her to learn ancient languages such as Phoenician. She has memories of being a super soldier, missions on spacecrafts, as well as living on Mars as a civilian. She recalls military briefings in which she trained young soldiers on how to kill Draco aliens. She also has memories of soldiers with thick metal masks and uniforms where she was in some med bed tube in order to salvage her body and leave the rest of the soldiers behind. She recalls being referred to as one of Dr. Government's Frankenstein's monsters. Her SSP records are heavily sealed by the government, and even Galactic Space Command is not forthcoming on information about her origins. She comes from a long line of majestic Masons. Her grandfather served in World War II and infiltrated one of Hitler's strong bases, which possibly contained alien technology. 40 years ago, her father worked in an underground facility below Area 51, which contained dark secrets, resulting in him building a resistance movement against the government. It appears her father was a victim of MK-Ultra Delta programming, which activated, causing him to nearly kill Mary when she was a child. Mary has received claw marks, needle marks, bruises, scars from malevolent beings who also seem to be targeting her children. And I got your contact information for people who want to contact Mary. In the early 1980s, Dr. Johnny Delirious worked with one of the first pioneers of the scientific modality hair tissue mineral analysis, HTMA. In the 1990s, Dr. Johnny had not only had life-threatening hepatitis C with 12 million viral load count, as well as liver cirrhosis, resulting in 96% scarred tissue. Due to his poor health, he had no choice but to sell his business and figure out a way to heal himself. His medical experts believed he had only 6 months left to live and recommended a liver transplant. Dr. Johnny chose not to get the transplant, which led to his doctors to believe he was delirious. Henceforth, since then he's been called Dr. Delirious. Eventually, Dr. Johnny was able to completely recover thanks to laboratory science knowledge he gained from his alien abduction experiences with the Greys. Dr. Johnny is a master survivor, best-selling author and radio host celebrity, and gives his expert advice with over 40 years of experience as a professional in the health industry. And so his website is mastersurvivor.com. So thank you both guests. Would anybody else like to add anything else to that bio?
TheMasterSurvivor.com is my website.
And Mary, how are you doing today? Okay, so you're lagging a little bit. So maybe Mary, you could just stop your camera so we can just hear you. Which is, it's kind of sad because back in the late 1990s.
Sorry, I had you on mute.
Okay, well, back in the 1990s, Bill Clinton issued $4 billion from Congress to rebuild the high-speed internet network in the United States for so even rural areas would have access to high-speed internet. Instead, all that money was squandered. So it's just more example of anyway. But the point is, are we able to hear you now, Mary? Is everything working good now? We're still getting a lag.
I think so. Test.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we just start?
I don't know what it is.
Why don't we just start off with you? Please explain to us what happened between you and Dr. Johnny.
So after the interview that I first had with you, Dr. Johnny and other people had reached out. Dr. Johnny is actually not the only one that I found to have interactions in the Super Soldier program, but ours was a little unique. And I remembered you telling you about the incident that I had on my third jump. At the end of it, when they send you back, they give you serums to mutate your gene code for the next 20 years that you're going to do. And I recently just found out that you probably can do up to 100 years, but I don't have confirmation on that. So that is hearsay at this point. But on the third jump, after we were set up to be attacked and they had killed most of my crew, I was in the lab, and before we go back, they give you new genetic codings. And I remember hearing Dr. J's voice, and he asked me, what do you want to get from this program? And I was like, hopefully death, because at that point I just wanted to die, because they took somebody very special from me at that point. And when he said that he was working on a secret serum and it was a match to my DNA, I was like, I don't care, hopefully it kills me. And it was a kind of a depressing thing. So I knew I was going back at about 5.5 years old. When he injected me with it, my super soldier tried coming out, and a bunch of underground military soldiers came in and rolled me down. I could hear myself snarling. Dr. J fell backwards, and then I blacked out and came back to my childhood. I couldn't talk. I was very aggressive, constantly fighting everybody, and that's kind of where they discovered that I was diagnosed mentally retarded, or spectrum disorder now. But so when I put that collaboration together with him after talking to him, it was fascinating because I was like, I wonder if that's what you guys were meant to do in the lab, is inject us with new gene codes, but they have to send us back because the super soldier won't come out when you're a child. So it's a fight, and that's why they call it like certain bad behaviors in children, why they, you know, act the way they do, they drool, and some of them never recover from it. And that's where the severe supposed autism spectrum disorder comes in. And but I was able to recover from it, unfortunately, through a lot of abuse. So him and I had that talk, and he had a memory of the rescuing, but I remember that particular situation of being turned from the assassin to the savior. Whatever it was that he was working on may have been secretly given maybe by the White Hat to the Earth Alliance. So I don't know those parts because obviously I was on my way back to being a child when they injected me, or when he injected me with it. So.
Well, I'd like to comment because when it first kind of came to me, and I, talked to Mary about this, she said, "Well, you were working for them." I said, "What? I was working for the deep state?" It's like I really flipped out. She says, "Well, sometimes they put you to work and they use you, but what you were giving me was something to save me. You said, this will help me survive." And so I said, well, today I'm doing the Master Survivor program. And you kept saying, Mary, well, you kept saying, this is my program. So that's how we kind of connected on that one. I remember holding a clipboard when I was talking and there's just, ever since I did that soul retrieval after the interview with James Rink, all this stuff started coming in and I couldn't figure it out. And I could only identify certain places, and you filled in the gaps, Mary. Well, thank you.
Okay, well, let's go. Let me ask a few questions here.
Welcome.
Can somebody please describe the name of this group, and maybe their logo or insignia, and maybe what this group's main goal was that you two worked for?
I know
I don't know what the scientific groups were.
Well, do you happen to know where you might have been stationed? Was it on this planet or off-world?
Yes, on the planet.
Yeah. And the time period was about the same. I mentioned it was 1989 when I was abducted. And Mary, you said that kind of correlated with when you were made that jump. So it's hard to tell on exact timing, but I think, yeah, it was around this area. And that all seemed to come together during that time period.
And were there like other extraterrestrials working among humans and personnel in this facility? Do you have that type level of recall? Was it all humans?
I know in my case, there was 2 incidents that I had with Mary. One, because that voice, when you did the interview with James Rink, that voice just triggered something in me. And I'm not kidding, I literally couldn't sleep for 2 days because I was sick of that voice. I know that voice. Before they calculated the incident, I was in a deprivation chamber and, where there's no light, no sound, no nothing. But the door flies open and it was this girl in uniform, and it was Mary. Later, I figured it out. And that voice, when she was talking on the interview, I remember what kept me awake that night was she said, get up, I'm not dragging you out of here, because she opened the door and I'm like, wow, because I was out of it. But then she said, oh, come on, you can do it. So she got me out of that deprivation chamber, and that's all I remember on that particular incident. And then the other one was where I was working in the lab, and Mary came in to get treatment of some kind, and she, was in that depressed state. So those are the 2 incidents that I remember, just those little flashes. And yes, when I left the deprivation chamber, I could see other humans and 1 or 2 aliens. and also in the lab, there were, and these were grays, by the way.
Well, I know, Mary, you're connected to Majestic, so I'm assuming maybe this was a Majestic facility. Okay. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Go ahead and talk now. Talk now. Mary, we're getting a little lag there. Okay, well, let's. I guess we could just. Oh, there
Sorry. So yeah. So the program I was under was the MK Delta program. So it's kind of like when you're a child and you're taken to the undergrounds. They make it look like Disneyland. Like when you're going in at that first huge gate, you see all these. I mean, it's not Disneyland, but they have the facade so you don't want to freak the children out, obviously, unless they're for the adrenochrome. But when you go to these different gates, they're labeled like MK Delta, MK Alpha, MK Beta, MK Gamma, Omega. You have all these doors, and depending on your gene sequence and whoever your handler is, the underground, they take you through these particular doors. So for myself, I would go through the MK Delta door, and then from there, it's like the recruiting office. They scan your DNA, so that's like your test, if you will, and then they send you through other doors, and that's where you're either part of the sex kitten program and whatever that looks like. There's other doors, and when you go to the MK Delta Assassin program, there's multiple doors. It depends on what it is they want to use you for. So for Dr. J, he would be under what's called the MK Beta program, because that's where they had the doctors, physicians, and those were the specific bloodlines. I don't know that particular part because I wasn't involved in all that, but I do know the names of the doors. I do know that there was, doors within the doors within the doors, programs within the programs. It depended on what they used them for. Everybody on the planet has been used. Everybody on the planet has been off space. Unless you were considered food. No, that's different. So the adrenochrome, they don't leave. And if they do, they're left for Mars or the moon, or wherever the Dracos were harvesting them. So the particular program, so I don't know what the names were because they erased the names right out of you. So they don't want you to know the names. We're going to record those names, and that's going to be out there, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, but as of right now, they're not allowing us to know the names of like who we worked with. We can see the faces all day long. I know like there's a couple super soldiers I spoke to don't remember faces, but they remember names. So it depends on what part of the brain they damaged that allows us to be able to recall. So I'm being slowly deprogrammed by somebody in the deep space program. And that's how I'm able to get a lot of this information. And it's like, oh, wait, there's all this information that just unplugged. And everybody else will get the same thing because there's certain words that either trigger you to react in fighting or, to hurt somebody, like the whole phone call thing. They get a phone call and all of a sudden they went out and assassinated somebody, came home in their bed, didn't know what happened that night. That's one of those trigger words that makes your other alter do something. And it could be anybody. It could be a regular housewife who never leaves the home and yet she's out there serial killing people. You know what I mean? That's the government mind control. And it's not prominent like that anymore, but it was. That was our life. So that system's breaking down. But like with Dr. J and other doctors, they're part of the beta program. So they would be used in either deep space or in space for healing, mutations, scientific mutation assistance or something, and then they'd be brought back. Everybody has been used in one shape or form. So, and again, the only ones that don't actually either make it off the planet or they don't do any of these programs were the ones chosen for the adrenochrome that I know of.
Mary, why don't you tell the audience members a little bit about some of your superhuman abilities as a super soldier?
So I'm extremely strong as an assassin. Our job is to be able to kill somebody within 3 to 6 seconds. In this person, my normal self, I'm a very nice person, but I do have to give everybody warning that, I'm cooperative unless threatened. and I normally black out, but I have an innate ability to transcribe ancient languages. Phoenician is the ancient Phoenician, let me clarify, because there is a Paleo-Phoenician, which is the language of the slaves. And the cryptological part is I can read people like an animal would read you, and it could be part of the mutations, I don't know. And I can smell people's pheromones, so I know if they're a danger, if they're not.
Hey, Brian, good to see you, mate.
Let's see. I was designed to kill the Dracos and any other harmful ET that would pose threats. But at first, I was actually designed to round people up, beings of other countries or worlds. But mostly, we were used to guard new planets that have minerals on it because they don't other people coming to mine those planets. So it's kind of like the other real military. There's less action and more like stand guard. So, and the real-time memory just means I have a football size of knowledge.
Tricky, she's starting to make sense now, you got to admit, don't you?
But I can't access it unless I'm in real time of the situation. And that's kind of what is considered a primitive animal mindset. So it's reactive.
All right. Well, Dr. Johnny, do you have anything else you'd like to add to this in your memories?
Well, I just know that some of the patients I've been dealing with, some of them are special forces, and I have a few that are super soldiers, and I do know that if you're not being used for their particular purpose, then you're basically fodder for adrenochrome or whatever. So we've been harvested at so many different levels, and one of the things I'm understanding with helping my patients is that there's a restorative nature in all of us that can be done, and I've discovered that in my healing, and that's what I'm trying to help not only the super soldiers and the special forces, but all my patients. So I just, I'm taking it and making it into the good, because everything can be good or bad, just depends how you use it. And so I'm using all this knowledge to promote more life, more happiness, more tranquility, and more peace in our world.
All right. So shall we move on to the second topic tonight, the crystal skulls?
Sure.
All right.
This was fascinating for me because I wanted to, I can't reveal exactly where they are because, but it's under military control, and me and my partner are the only ones that have availability to these pieces. And I saw over 100 different skulls, probably 40 or more were crystal, and then the rest were jade. And then, of course, I saw other ones that were actual skulls. But the thing that's so unique about all these pieces is they're over 20,000 years old. Okay, they've been carbon dated and they've been tested and everything. And so that's why me and my partner are the only ones able to have access to this, because it's kind of a hidden knowledge and they don't want it out, and it is protected by the military. But I'm able to.
Brian, I'm actually doing that on the day of King Charles' coronations. There's 2 videos about the Antichrist and King Charles. So on the day he's coronated, I'll be showing both of them. So no worries. Already had that worked out, bro.
Bring a few out because they trust me. They're training me for like medbed training and things like that. I've already had technician training ongoing about that. And so these are just things I can't talk about too much more than that. But they just told me, Johnny, we love your program. You've got the food, and these skulls and all these pieces have a technology And part of that technology is a healing technology. And so that's why I brought it up with Mary. And I said, well, we ought to get with James. And okay, so here's a video.
Vast, about 2 or 3 years ago, the Syrian ambassador to the United Nations complained that America's fielding in the battlefield genetically enhanced soldiers. And I thought, well, how do they know what a genetically enhanced soldiers look like? And then when you see Ferguson riots and you see that giant there in the uniform, like he's nearly 3 times the size of the guy next to him, not quite, but that's how they knew, because these super soldiers, they're giants. They're like 10 foot tall, literally.
One, you can see the alien passing a cup to the human. Okay, that's what he's doing. Now understand that these are over 20,000 years old, and they've been tested. Everybody that's an expert that I've shown them to, all these pieces say, well, they're, all I can tell you is I don't know where they came from, but I can tell you they're not fake, because nobody can make these. So you see the aliens passing the cup to the Indian right here. And this material is crystal, but it's harder than a diamond. You can't scratch this with a diamond.
Wow.
So they're harder, and it's made, in a way that we can't replicate today. One guy told me he's in charge of a $2 billion facility that extract all kinds of minerals from all types of different rock and everything. He can melt and liquefy quartz and extract gold from it. I mean, there's only 2 facilities in the whole world that can do that. And we gave him couple of skulls to look at, a couple of the pieces. He said, well, we can't replicate this today. So I know it's not fake, and you say it's over 20,000 years old. And I said, well, I think it's from Lemuria, and Lemuria had a multiverse off-planet function. And so that's one crystal. Now there's another one, a video I gave you that was a jaguar. Yeah, this is the jaguar. And so this has got gold and jade, and it's got, the Aztec calendar, which wasn't by the Aztecs, it wasn't by the Mayas, it was from long, long, long ago.
Wow, that's an impressive little statue. Wow.
From an ancient race. And so this is some of their technology. And now I've put meters on some of these pieces, and they've got powers, some more than others and some different than others. But this is the, and again, just imagine, this is over 20,000 years old.
No, it's
so
not.
These pieces are under protection between me and my partner in the military. And we are the only ones that have access to it. And I said, well, I may show a few of these pieces. That's fine, Johnny, but, don't reveal where it came from or where it is. So I said, okay, no problem. So this is a very unique piece. This is over like 300 pounds. This is, really big.
How heavy? 300 pounds?
So this is a very unique piece. This is over like 300 pounds. This is, really big. And so just the craftsmanship alone can't be duplicated on all these pieces. And let alone the age is over 20,000 years old. So I gave you, these 2 videos on that. And so these are extraordinary pieces. And by the way, they're priceless in value. I've had some people that, they assessed different relics from Egypt or gold from the main tombs or whatever. So they've seen it all. And they said, wow, these are priceless. There could be so it's not like something I'm putting or wanting to put directly on the open market or anything like that. we're trying to decipher all the knowledge that these will reveal. And one of the things I've been talking to Mary about, I said, look, Mary, I want to bring you and show you some of these pieces and see there's writing here and specific glyphs. And so I want Mary to be able to look at that, read that when she's holding it in her hand, because you get power from these, Mary, when you hold them and you're around them. I mean, I walked away, I felt like I was animated I was on cloud 9. I didn't know everything was going off in so many different memories. So I know this is going to trigger you when you see them, and I know you're going to trigger them when they meet you. So these pieces,
hopefully in a positive way.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at all this as a healing modality, and that's what I'm all about. You know, in the Master Survivor program, James, I have 3 rules: no drugs, no surgery, and no one has to suffer. So my whole goal is to bring this wellness and tranquility back into people's lives, and these pieces definitely have the ability to do that. Anyway, that's one role about the piece that I wanted to discuss. And I sent you some other pictures too. I think some stills. If you could bring those up, I'll go over those, because I saw all these pieces and then much more. And by the way, the military and the government are in control. That they gave me a couple of pieces, and I showed you one earlier, James. That's no longer here in my residence. I've got a special forces family that lives close to me, and so I took that piece back over to their house. And so here's me holding a jade skull. This is jade, but then it's crystal at the same time. So when I showed some of these things to the experts, they said, well, we can't make that, just the way it's made and how it's not just it's carved, it's like it's formed, so it's extraordinary. All these are 20,000 years old. Now, this is just one. I had they're all types of crystal skulls. This is the jade one that was more jade. And I put meters on them and measured them. Some of them have radio frequency, like FM. Others don't have any magnetics at all, but they have harmonics to them. So that's why it's so extraordinary, and that's why they can be used for good or for bad. And so I think it's really unique for people to kind of just open their view a little bit more, that there's a lot more to our world than they ever want you to know or you ever could imagine. And when you look at some of these pieces, I pull another one up. I had another one, I think was a crystal jaguar that I was holding. And the best I could do is to help you see it, because it was totally clear, but perfectly carved. And so I put my finger in his mouth. And so this whole jaguar is perfectly carved. And again, all these pieces are over 20,000 years old. So there's a lot more to this story, and each piece has its own volume to tell. I mean, it's like just a volume of information. So when you're holding them, you can pick up that. So Barry, I can't wait to get you to meet some of these pieces in person, because who knows, maybe you'll have a deja vu experience, and so so anyway, another one, each one has a unique, okay, this piece is one that I have. It's not in my house, but it's got, so whoever this civilization is, they had a thing about alligators, okay? Just like in the ancient Mediterranean, they had a thing about bulls. In Russia, they had a thing about bears. The Chinese have a thing about dragons. Well, this civilization has a thing about alligators, not crocodiles, alligators. And so maybe that's when the alien passes his manhood, he goes out and captures an alligator, and then they say, oh yeah, you're a man, or something like that. Who knows? But all I know is the workmanship, just on this piece or all the pieces, is absolutely incredible, as being so fine and not a scratch on it, and yet it's over 20,000 years old. There's no wear at all, because like this piece, like the crystal skull, is harder than a diamond can't scratch it. Wow. So here you got the pyramid, you got aliens, you got spaceships on each side, you got, maybe this is like the alien view of his life. He conquered the alligator and he had this life, and maybe that depicts his life. It's all up in the air of exactly what these pieces mean. But I want to, every piece that I have is different, James. If you could go to the next one, they all tell, okay, so these skulls.
Yeah, Tricky, they don't realise that the Earth's only 6,000 years old. So, yeah, it's their misunderstanding. It's not them being malicious about it.
These are different crystal skulls. All of them are totally different. And they have a power. These had aura.
Okay, I'm not going to do a whole hour and a half on crystal skulls. I thought it'd be better than that. So let's go to something else I've lined up. Okay, where is it? No, go to my videos. Yeah, that's it.
And I've included a link to some of her websites. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm James Rink, and you are listening to Super Soldier Talk. And today we actually are going to bring on two super soldiers to share their story, rather our story, because I'm one, and so is Apollonie Mandelian, who is very gracious to join us here tonight, and as well as all the listeners here in the chat. Thank you also for joining us. And so there's some great questions in the chat. Well, I'm going to try to get to answer some of your questions, but let me go ahead and introduce Apollonie by reading her bio, and then we'll cue her to share some more information that she'd like to share. So, Apollonie Mandelian is a super soldier hybrid mix of dragon and Pelagian or Palladian DNA created by Darkfleet and the ICC, which stands for the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate. She has been recruited into Project Mind Control, Project MK Ultra, Project Crest, aka Stargate, Project Carbon, and then underwent a My Lab, which she took her to Section 32C at Area 52, located near Area 51. From there, she was sent into the boot camp at Camp Livingston in Louisiana, where she was trained by NAZI's Aryans, that is known as Project Ashwat, Children of God, to make the most supreme super soldiers in the universe, according to them anyway. From there, she resumed her training at Section 1332C to make her battle ready for military combat and psionic missions. The treatment she and others like her received was atrocious. She recalls being forced to eat gruel, and she had to wear disciplinary shock collars. One day, she was raped, and then she lost it and rebelled by killing 3 of her military superiors that were in upper management. Normally, when something like that would take place, they would scrap a rebellious soldier. However, because she's a super soldier and they spent millions on her, they decided it was best to send her to the Draconian Mars base as punishment to help her understand how good she had it at Section 1332C. So, we've discussed this in a previous show. This is, like I said, this is the third interview she's done. So you're gonna have to go back and listen to some of the other interview if you want to listen about that, because we're going to share a different mission here today. But continuing on here, Apollo Me also remembers training in Inner Earth with some blonde-haired, blue-eyed people, and she also participated in Project Blue Book, which helped the military understand various ET technologies and missions, both dimensional and off-world. So yeah, we're going to go into this Draco battle today, which took place on 3.5 Delta Quadrant on a moon near Sirius, and I don't know which Sirius it is, but Apollo will be sharing some of their latest missions, as well as answering some of the Q&A from the audience members' questions. And I've included a link to some of her websites if you want to reach out and contact her. So thank you, Apollo, for coming on here.
Thank you for having me. It's doing okay.
Great.
Thank you, AI. That's very kind of you. I love chilling with you guys. That's what I live for, to hang out with you guys streaming. Thank you.
All right. So, is there anything else you'd like to add to that bio that I might have missed?
No, that'll be fine for now.
Okay, awesome. So we've actually done some work together to try to determine some missions that you have been on. And it's even though you were in section 1332C and I was over at Kruger, they sometimes will loan us out, and there was an actual particular point in time where our paths crossed out there. So
okay, I know the channel's called Super Soldier Talk, and it's always got the same guy hosting it, but I didn't realise he was an ex-super soldier too, even though it's in the title.
Hey, what we're going to do is we're going to present some information that Apollo has recalled through, I guess you could say, regression or a meditation experience that helped you to see some of this information. So yesterday we spent probably about a couple hours putting all this together. So I guess it's been agreed that I'm going to be the one narrating this. However, these are actually Apollo's words. So for people out there who want to put comments in the chat that I'm not letting her speak, I actually am letting her speak. This is all her words. So with my editorial skills. So without further ado, and by the way, I will allow Apollo to comment once we get through this, as we get through it. Okay, so Apollo now is on a planet with soil that is tannish red color. There's no flora or fauna here. It is all rock and barren. She's able to determine that her name is Epsilon Queen, and she's approximately 4 foot 6 inches tall and wearing a black uniform. That is her original body. She is in some kind of alien hybrid body that looks like it has elf ears, crimson red hair, and green eyes. Her name was given to her by her scientist handler and rated by abilities or specialities. There are also 4 people in front of her, 2 standing and 2 are sitting down on a rock. They are from different factions of her group. She is an original female hybrid body. Some of the other people are hybrids and some are humans. She thinks, okay, I got that. Yeah, the comment was Epsilon. She thinks her name is Epsilon Queen. Okay, so I think the person, Star Shooter, is he standing? So he's in front of you?
He is off to the left side of me.
Okay, Star Shooter is a human hybrid male. He's probably around 6'5", and I'm gonna get some more information about Star Shooter just a bit. But the person next to Star Shooter is not human. The skin color is tan. He is taller too, about 6'8". There's also an insectoid type human sitting down. He has green skin, light green skin, and he's very cybernetic. And then I'm there, 6'2", brown hair, short hair, fade. They call me Sabretooth, and also is very cybernetic. So that's where, if you look at the picture, video, left eye heat seeking, right eye normal.
I'd be wary of anyone with the name of Ishmael, to be honest.
All of us are wearing the same skin type uniform from head to toe with white boots. The uniform looks white with blue with no text or insignia designs. Everyone has a helmet on except Sabretooth and the Mantis. Apparently, those two individuals didn't need breathing apparatus because of the cybernetics.
No way! Oh, they got a soldier called, what was it? Sabretooth, like from the X-Men. Well, I wonder if the X-Men's based on true super soldier stuff.
The mission was to be the backup for the mission because it says here, getting attacked by other ET factions in the area. They accepted group's assistance for stronger firepower. Can you please, Ptolemy, can you explain what was going on with that?
So the faction that Sabretooth ended up working for ended up hiring Section 13 members for stronger backup.
Okay, and do you have any information on why these Draco wanted to invade this world?
No, they don't give us that information. They just give us our objective and end up sending us on our way.
Okay, well, let's just assume there was some kind of research facility or colony outpost there. How come the locals didn't take up arms and try to fight the Draco themselves? Why do they need to send 5, 6 super soldiers out there? Don't they have their own security? Okay.
They don't tell us anything. They literally give us our objective, and we don't even know where we're going half of the time. So.
All right. So from there, we move to the rendezvous point, which is some kind of field area and taking station. So I'm assuming this is also kind of desert planet, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very barren. There's no floral fauna animals that we saw in the area.
It doesn't take very long for the Draconian ships to show up. The fighting starts. They start touching ground, and then Sabretooth ended up firing, and we got into better positions into enemy lines. We ended up flanking them both on both sides of a team of 6 people now because another scout showed up. And as a small group, we were able to effectively fight the Draconians and were victorious. However, Starshooter, he's the human hybrid male, about 6'5". He was injured on his leg by the Draconians. Do you remember what specifically injured? What did they bite him or something? What happened?
I'm not entirely sure. I was fighting elsewhere. When we started running away from the ships, we just noticed that his leg was injured, and 2 of the members were carrying him out, like on their shoulders.
Okay. So let's see here. There were five ships touched down. We're not sure how many Draconians came out to battle. But okay, so Sabretooth ended up taking up most of the small henchmen, reptilians, while Ptolemy focused on eliminating the Draconians using her psionic abilities. She can create some kind of nuclear explosion, and then afterward the team had to safely evacuate the area before that explosion took place. Okay, so after that happened, no one was left. The Draco ships were blown up, and we also jammed their signals to prevent calls for backup. Okay, so at this point, well, do you want to comment about anything else about any of this?
So when I first met the entire team, we were just kind of off on one of the areas. We actually had to move from that area further away in order when we saw the ships coming down, and that's when the battle started. So I ended up going with one of the other members, and we ended up kind of flanking them, and then Sabretooth ended up opening fire when some of the Draconians lackeys basically started coming out of the ships, and we just ended up in this huge like firefight basically. I ended up fighting at least 2 of the Draconians, mostly on my own, and then the team that Sabretooth was on ended up fighting kind of elsewhere. I usually take my battles kind of off to the side just because I can be a little destructive. There's very few party members that I usually get assigned with who can basically battle with me. And then we ended up subduing those guys, getting onto their ships, jamming their codes, and then I told you guys to run, and then I ended up doing my most devastating ability, which is literally creating a nuclear explosion. If you guys want the physics of that, I basically create an energy ball to the point where it creates a gravitational flow and then just collapse it. So.
Yeah, do you know how big the blast radius was?
Big enough to take out 5 ships, so I couldn't really tell you. I mean, the ships were pretty decent size, and each of them had at least 20 people coming out of it.
So I guess the moral of the story is we shouldn't try to get you upset. Have you ever had a Carrie moment? I don't know, Steve. Have you ever seen a Stephen King movie, Carrie? Nothing like that has happened to you in your civilian life?
I've had some pretty interesting things happen to me in my civilian life. I've had my eyes turn crimson red. I've had things move towards me. I've scared a lot of people. I've made people tell the truth. So yeah, I do have abilities. It's just with my augmentation, it blocks a lot of it out. I have also phased through objects physically in my civilian life as well, and more than just the door when I was 4.5 years old. I do have some friends that I like to spar with, and I've actually phased through them before, and they said it was very cold and the most bone-chilling thing they've ever experienced.
All right. Yeah, well, I mean, we could discuss more of these abilities, or we could just continue on here the presentation. Which direction would you like to take this?
Oh, we can continue on with the presentation. I don't want to derail too much.
Sure. All right. So.
Okay, then you're not liking this one. Let's give this one here a go. Hang on. Oh, I don't know about that. Hang on, guys. Okay, hang on.
Now we go into some conversation. So we are able to pick up some, yeah. Okay, so this message is from Sabretooth to me. He referred to me as James 2.52. You need to unlock yourself. The memories will be painful. Once you survive that, you can get strong to come find me. Sabretooth will show you the rest of the way. So question is, how come, I guess, we as general, as super soldiers, or us in SSP, have trouble remembering these memories? And the answer is from Sabretooth, James 2.52, you are a clone of me. You will get residual memories because of the consciousness link. So our alters, so basically these memories are being conducted in other clone bodies off world. So technically it's almost like a dream, an astral. So sometimes when you wake up, you don't necessarily remember your dream, but if it's being done in another realm, the rate of time may not be the same, as well as the memories are located in another physical vessel. Is that probably a good way to look at it? The reason why the memories don't bleed through?
Okay, apparently no one wants to watch that, so I've lined something else up.
Concerning the economically unstable times that we live in, it is a great idea to convert some of your savings into real money. Now, there is a big difference between real money and what we call money, which is actually just currency. So our dollar is currency, which fluctuates. Real money, on the other hand, like silver, for example, is a store of value over time. The best way to think of it is like this. If you had saved $1,000 in cash back in the late 60s, the late 1960s, that $1,000 would still be $1,000 technically, but it would buy you significantly less today due to inflation. Now, if you had saved that same $1,000 in silver back in the 1960s, today it would be worth around $28,000. Some of the best ways to...
Okay, you didn't like them guys because I don't know why, but is there super soldiers? Are they true? Here's one at the Ferguson riots, guys. Hang on, do that again. Now there's a super soldier there. Here's a super soldier's height. Here's a normal person's height. So the normal person comes up to his waist. So he's nearly twice as tall as a man. That's a real life super soldier. So they do exist, and we don't know what sort of training they get. I can imagine how bizarre it'd be. So I think in that super soldier talk, I think they could be a bit legit there. Just one more time.
Ways to protect your purchasing power is in real money, more specifically, silver. You can buy and have the metal shipped discreetly to your door. And what most people don't know is that you can actually convert your IRA or even a 401k into physical silver rather than having all of your life savings tied up in the paper fiat system, which is subject to hyperinflation. Go to dailyrenegade.com and click on the Cornerstone Assets Metals banner. This is the only company that I personally trust with this kind of thing. Click on that and sign up to get your free silver report today. One of the financial experts will speak with you to find out the best way to protect your savings going forward in these uncertain times.
Yeah, Corey Good, he's brainwashed. They released info. I do realise that, but I really do believe there is a secret space program. Let me see if I can find one of that super soldier talk that's not that outlandish, because that was the sort of theme of the day. So give me a sec, guys. I don't know if they. Where is it? Okay, I got one on remote viewing.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the show. Since I think it's like my 5th interview this week. It's all good. I'm energized and we've got a great
busy guy.
Yeah, right. Okay, so so today we have Colin here, and Colin's actually been on here before. And Colin, you're probably one of our more favorite guests. Not that I'm saying the other guests aren't favorites too, but so Colin today and James today are going to be sharing some updates about some more regression notes, as well as some remote viewing notes pertaining to the super soldier community. So Colin is a super soldier. I'm pretty sure he was in Darkfleet. He's a remote viewer, precognitive. He's clairaudient. I met him in the SSP at the 500 room Marketer Retreat Hotel in Iaptus that was my alter, Derek Reinholder, who's also busy at the same time. Derek was a non-commissioned officer for Fire Team S in Nakwath and Regier. Nakwath and Regier is a branch of, Nakwath stands for Darkfleet, but Regier, that particular group, I believe, is subservient to the ICC. This hotel is ICC is Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate. It doesn't matter too much. That's off topic, but this hotel is an R&R facility serving clientele, mostly military and pirates. So, yes. Okay. Well, anyway, Colin's email is in there. So, welcome, Colin, to the show. How are you doing?
Good, good. And also, I wanted to add that we have found quite a few other experiences where we crossed paths in the programs. The Marketeer facility was the first regression in which which we discovered that we had some service together. Some of the recent regressions, include the Desert Planet battle that took place when we were we were part of a 4-man recon team, and essentially we were struggling to get off the planet, and that was probably one of the more recent regressions. But yeah, we've got some goodies today about the community in general. So we can start basically wherever you want.
Was that planet the one with Darkfleet? You already said Desert Planet, but I showed you a picture, a drawing.
Yeah, you did.
I had one of my altars. Okay. How about I pull that up, since we could tell the audience, or we could show the audience.
It was unbelievable how similar, like what I saw in the in the regression was so similar to what he's about to show you here.
That one? Is that it?
Yeah, that was one of the ones you showed me. Yeah, there was an evacuation going on. Like I was saying, we were struggling to get off the planet. There was some major activity going on, and we had infiltrated something. There's still more that we need to figure out about that particular experience, but in fact, I remember very clearly the weapon that you had at that time. It was a long-barreled rifle of some kind. So
some kind of plasma weapon.
Could have been, yeah. I mean, at that time, we were using the programmable matter tech. So it could have been really anything. And some of what we're going to talk about today has to do directly with the programmable matter technology, and some of the tech that we discovered in a recent regression. Like the drone that is stored along the lining of our rear plate. There's like a bulge that would stick out back here, and there was a drone probably about the size of my hand that you could control with a binocular device, and the drone would conduct long-range reconnaissance, and it would also be a saboteur drone that would more or less vaporize an enemy upon impact. So that was one of the things that we recently found. Do you think it's cool?
Gotta share this?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. We can start.
I'm sorry, guys. That's the wrong one. That's okay.
What I was gonna say was, do you think should I make like the general announcement as to what we can expect over the next 7 years or so?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I had an experience last week. I was pulled through a portal, and on the other side of that portal was none other than Cash Patel. I was extremely surprised to see that. But if you look at what he did in the last 45 administration, he was the chief of staff to the Secretary of Defense, I think that's what his role was at the end of that administration. So what that told me was that they're deeply involved, and what I was told as part of this experience is that all of the SSP personnel that were part of the programs, whether it was against our will or we signed up for it, we're all going to be given our memories back in full.
Hi, Scott. Good to see you.
Returned the energy that was taken from us against our will, and it's all going to happen between now and 2030. So I was basically given this information to tell the community that starting now, we can expect, all of the energy to start flooding back in. You know, it may start off slower and pick up, which is what you would expect. But anybody that legitimately served in the SSP will be given their memories back and experiences back in full. And the Alliance Council is currently coming up with a plan to reimburse us, whether that be monetarily. We're already going to be reimbursed energetically. But there he is. Yeah, he was the guy, and he's the one that was he greeted me on the other side of the portal. And basically, what he showed me was some of my major memories in training when I first entered the programs. He actually showed me the very first time that I was considered for a program. I actually got arrested for trying to operate a weapon that didn't have my genetic signature. And they caught me and realized that my genetics.
Wow, they got weapons that need your genetic signature. Wow.
My dispositions were that of, you know, basically not just extrasensory, but you know, I had predispositions to psionic abilities, you know, interfacing with crystal technology, you know, portal opening and closing, energetic, you know, concentration and direction telekinetically through my hands and eyes. So I was pulled into a program, and that's how it started. You know, roughly 300 years or so into the future. One of the things that was made clear to me is that we all came back in time here. We all came back in time to correct this timeline, because what had happened, originally the Cabal on this timeline had won the war, and it really wasn't much of one, because what had happened was the Cabal more or less, you know, took complete control after World War II. And you know what had happened was that he created a center for tyranny in the not just the solar system, but the galaxy. And it was so bad that you know, some of the federations and groups within the galaxy that were benevolent decided that we would use our allies from other galaxies to create a program to go back in time through an emissary program. Yep. And conduct this mission from the outside in, or I'm sorry, from the inside out rather than the outside in. And that's what we're doing right now. So as we grow older in this lifetime, we'll begin to get a lot of the experiences and memories and abilities back. So we're kind of starting, you know, from the starting line here. Everything that we see and we remember from our service occurred in the future. So it's critical to remember that. Now, that's not to say that certain missions didn't take place in our past, but most of what we experienced took place in the future. So that particular experience showed me a lot of what my initial memories were in the programs and why I had gotten pulled into the programs in the first place. So, and you know, it also showed me both light and dark. You know, some of what had happened to me as a super soldier, you know, working for the regressive side, and then you know, liberated, and then working for the Alliance, the White Hat, and the benevolent side. So we took a lot of notes the other night. You know, we did some regression work. Still a lot to dig into, but anybody that is part of that was part of these programs, just be ready, because you're going to start feeling a lot of energy. You're probably already starting to feel it now, but it's going to come on strong, and you're going to start to have these.
Okay, this is only 4 days old, guys.
Unpredictable events occur where you're going to be pulled through portals and shown exactly what it is you did, how you got into these programs, and it's going to pick up in pace from here until 2031. So.
Wow. Okay. So just to make this clear, Cash Patel was in the future that this meeting that you're at.
That's right.
Yeah. Maybe I could just bring it up in the regression that we had, so we can just so people can see it too, what we're discussing. Hopefully everybody can see. You know, I can make the text a little bigger.
Let me answer a question real quick. Sorry, in the chat. The secret to James looking younger is because he too is getting energy back that was taken from him against his will. So you may be starting to see that take hold in his projection, his image. That's very important to understand that, because that's, like I said, as we go further down this timeline, it's going to be basically as if we regain all of our abilities as well. So, in this particular timeline, by 2030, we'll be basically full-blown soldiers again, super soldiers with our abilities. And also, one of the things I forgot to mention, and then James, I'll let you move forward with that, but there's going to be an Armada invasion that takes place here on this timeline. The Orion group, particularly the Siakar Dracos, are going to try an Armada invasion to retake the system, and we're going to be called to fight in that.
Wow, there's going to be an Armada. Wow, that's what Project Blue Boom's all about, isn't it?
Defense of the invasion, and then also I saw further down the timeline towards the end of this century, a lot of the super soldiers are going to be responsible to bring the fight to them, particularly around Thuban, which is a stronghold of the Draco right now. So
yeah, let's just go up to this. So we made Cash Patel. Oh, sorry, I'm going to scroll this just a little bit. Oh yeah, we're in some kind of great hall. Sees fireman team S here. I think it's supposed to be S.
AI, I grew my hair long because I couldn't go to the hairdressers when the lockdowns were on because I hadn't had one vaccination. So I couldn't get my hair cut. So I just let it grow out.
There's advanced race here.
no, you're right. It was an eight man. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, 8-man. Okay, they're super ESP. These beings that were in this meeting with you, I guess. So let's see here. And it's just going to go down here. Okay. Cash Patel liberate us. He's the chief of staff to Secretary of Defense, but he's hiding under the title. So in the future, we'll learn more about him in the decade. I guess coming in the future. Maybe 2030s.
Oh, I was wondering what you meant, say Cash's SS AI. I was wondering what you meant, but yeah, apparently so.
Over time, our soul in this reality, not ours, just people, SSP veterans in general, will get stronger and stronger because all this energy that was used as slaves are going to be coming back to us reimbursed energetically.
Right. That's right.
Over the next 10 years. So yeah, I apologize, guys. I know I didn't spell check, but I
learned new age.
I'm stuck in so many energies. Okay,
so it's one of the home planets for the Siakar.
Yeah, did I put that in here?
No, I'm just answering. I see there.
Yeah, so once Earth is liberated, the super soldiers, SSP veterans are going to be compensated, then we're going to be healed and compensated. And then we'll have some time to help rebuild humanity. After that, the Space Alliance, let's see here. So Space Force becomes Space Alliance in 2053. Then 2153, it's renamed Space Earth Alliance, but I guess Space Alliance just becomes more galactic. But the version here on planet Earth is Space Earth Alliance. So don't quote me on that, but because things can change. But
well, those are correct. So the years are correct, but we have to remember that we're conducting a mission that we went back in time for. So while those councils or whatever were created during that time, we're now operating in this theater of war during this timeline at this time, in the year of 2023. So it may seem as if these alliances were created recently. Yes and no. I mean, they were created, far into the future and then brought back here into time to conduct this mission. So
thank you. Okay, so over the next 100 years, planet Earth will be lit. So I guess we'll reach our peak. In about 100 years' time, the super soldiers will be asked to go out, take battle. There's going to be a battle around 2098 near the Thuban system. So you already mentioned that.
Right. We're going to be expected to participate in that.
Once, in my book, I talk about the Thuban Draco that were at Montauk and how they had these confessional booths where they would carve a cross into us and have us drink this blood that they had. And
ritual, yeah.
So these particular Thuban were
the Tausfiar are guilty of that as well. Those types of
their souls were like some lower level minions of hell, and they wanted to use us at Montauk to, I guess, take over the world through the New World Order. And that's what they thought in their mind, that we would be their police force or whatever. But it didn't really work out as planned for them. But so yeah, other races that are going to join in this battle are the Nekoma.
Yeah, the Nekoma. So those are the aliens from Independence Day, actually. In Independence Day, they're portrayed as our enemy. However, they are not our enemy. They are an aggressive race that actually the Siakar Dracos are extremely afraid of. I'm not sure that's the spelling, but hey, that'll do.
All right, so we kicked their butts, and they're kicked out of the galaxy, and then I guess the humanity. I don't know. I guess I think it might take 1,000 years really to really liberate the galaxy, but after that,
It'll take some time, yeah, but we're well on our way. And we have to remember that coming back here to do this now is going to create quantum echoes, so the correction will actually happen exponentially faster than you may believe.
Thank you. In 2030, the SSP veterans are going to be the new leaders responsible for setting an example for us as humanity, or the teachers and guides, beacons of light. So I guess we're going to help rebuild humanity and Tartaria. So as I said, I don't know, and anybody watched my earlier interview today with Dylan Monroe, Suzanne, the Q team, but we were discussing how Saint Germain was successful on convincing the European royalty to set aside their differences and set up the United States of Europe at the same time as the United States of America. The whole planet right now would look like Versailles, as lavish as Versailles. It doesn't have to be exactly like it, but that's
it's nuts what they did, man. They destroyed so many of the the Tartarian like buildings that they're free energy centers. And we're going to get back to that, and a lot of the new construction that's going to take place between now and 2050. Those buildings are going to be in that style, but also with a modern touch to them. So yeah.
All right. So let's see here. Yeah, somebody's asking what Jimmy Payne is talking about, the nuclear war. I think that's the timeline where the people that are still on 3D Earth go into, and then we're already switched to the positive. That's why there's a disconnect from what Colin says and what Jimmy Payne says. So I like what Colin says. I like this ending of the story.
Well, that's the thing. Like that timeline that Jimmy's talking about was the one that played out before. Since we've come back to fix that timeline, that's not going to happen. There's too much help here now.
No way, Triggy. I never heard of that. They're selling real estate that is not in its realm. I never knew that.
There wouldn't be an opportunity for somebody to detonate a nuclear weapon. It would be impossible based upon the technology here and the people that are paying attention to that kind of a thing. So we're on the right timeline. We're not going to experience nukes, not here at least. We might see one somewhere out in the galaxy, but that's a big no-no with some of the more advanced fourth and fifth density races, because we have to remember nuclear weapons will disrupt a lot of the travel networks that these higher density beings use to get throughout the systems. And it hasn't.
Gee, that's interesting. Nukes will interfere with their systems. Wow, their stargates and that. That's a little detail I didn't know.
Effect on reality outside of our own. So.
All right. Yeah, so now we go, I guess Cash was there, Trump and Melania. So they're all projecting themselves from our future into I guess,
this experience was not the first one where Trump was present. There's a big event that's going to occur this year. A lot of people refer to it as like the big crash, fake World War III. Or fake nuclear scenario, but real World War III type scenarios. That event actually already occurred in fifth density. Things happen here a lot slower. So I got to experience the event from the outside looking in, and I was able to feel the panic that the collective is going to feel here. It's going to be pretty intense for a good month, and then it'll take some time to get to heal from or get better from because all the declass. I mean,
and Triggy, all the elites were going down to Antarctica in 2016, and Buzz Aldrin went down, and he had a heart attack, and they had to medevac him. And he says there's great evil down in Antarctica, and apparently they went down to see the king of the world, who we know as Lucifer. So that's what they were doing apparently. So Antarctica is a really wicked place.
All this declassification we're going to expect here, it's gonna rattle some feathers. It's gonna really throw people off that didn't know these types of things were going to happen or were happening. So
okay, great. Now I guess, are we ready to move on to the Alpha Squad?
Sure.
Okay, so Alpha Squad is a group of, basically starts off as a group of rogue super soldiers that were, I guess, maybe they were slated for extermination, somehow escaped. And then, so they started doing mercenary type work, and then other super soldiers that weren't happy with how they were being treated joined in. And then the squad eventually, in the current time period, it has about 100 members. And I'm AKA Agent Sabretooth. I talked about some of the other members in my book, Dreadnought and Bloodstreak. It looks like Colin is in the group too, AKA Agent Rattlesnake.
yeah, those were like our nicknames, you know. But yeah, I mean, it was like a group of some of them, some vigilantes and criminals, and yeah, I mean, it actually, the Alpha Squad got so big, they had to create a council to manage the Alpha Squad.
So I think the council are like a group of engineers, like medical support staff, I guess people that do strategical type planning, and I guess there's probably also a recruiting, like the training crew. So I think that's probably the council, or not? Is that accurate? Or what do you think?
Well, the council it's made up of members of the Alpha Squad.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's engineers and soldiers and infiltrators and whatever have you, you know.
Yeah.
It just, we choose people to represent us.
So, like I said, in the current present period, they are, I mean, I guess you could say their own group, but in the future, it becomes even bigger to the point where Alpha Squad is the squad to be in, because they pick the best of the best. And the reason why they call it Alpha is because it's the first group that's gone into battle. So you have to be the elite of the elite. Like my altar is a sniper, and yeah, I guess they're upgraded to Gen 8. So they have cloning technology. And let's see, what else you want to just, maybe go into what's in here. Yeah.
G'day, John. Good to see you, mate.
Okay. So it's controlled by an AI, or benevolent AI. It regulates it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think yeah. And if you want to learn more
about the do you want to talk about like the drone or?
Okay, the channel is Super Soldier Talk. I don't know the guy who's talking though.
Where are we at? Can you scroll down?
Oh, the drone was earlier, so I can go back up to that.
Yeah,
right at the beginning.
So we did. I just wanted to.
I'll post the
way
link.
that we handled these regressions.
Hang on.
It was done in a remote viewing manner where James gave me coordinates, and those coordinates would bring me to certain points where I could see certain things. So I was thinking maybe we could address those coordinates, because the first one was the drone, I believe, the Saboteur drone that was also used as a long range reconnaissance.
The spine dart.
Yeah, it was spine dart. It was connected to our consciousness, and it would give us long range reconnaissance abilities to see across all different light spectrums. And if we really needed to use it, we could also use it for assassinations, because if you activated that setting, and by the way, this was all done through our implant, and you could use it for assassinations. It would vaporize a target upon impact, and then you would have to replace the drone. But the drone is like I was saying, it's stored on your spine, so it's connected into your spinal fluid and your spinal cord, and that's what gives it such a psionic ability, and it just really connects your consciousness, so you're really able to clearly see certain things. And that was interesting, because I'll be honest with you, before that particular regression, I hadn't seen anything like that in any previous sessions. So
yes. Okay, somebody was asking what exactly you're remote viewing. So this is like one of your special abilities as Agent Rattlesnake. You have this drone that can disconnect from you and basically assassinate anyone.
Yeah, and that's so like I'm a remote viewer in this timeline in this body, and that just so happened to be an ability that I developed out as a super soldier as well, and that just it was one of my strong suits that I was able to develop into a drone and use it for those types of things where it gives you a clear image of what you're viewing. And you can use it for all different reasons. So yeah, I mean, let's see, what was the next?
Colin, do you remember something called golden form or heightened stage? Is it
heightened stage for sure.
What is that?
Form and heightened stage are just ways to to maximize your energetic output regarding a certain ability. So you would have like golden form or heightened stage for certain abilities that a super soldier may have. It wasn't necessarily just focused into one. It was like a training assistant, if you will, and it would focus your ability to manage your energy more efficiently, more or less. That's kind of like the best way to put it, I guess.
Okay, great. So if you want to learn more about Alpha Squad and Golden Form and all that, so go check out my book. I go into all that in much detail. So let's go ahead and move on here because I know we've got some more topics. Do you want to go into?
Yep.
Yeah, the next coordinate. Let's see, what was that one?
This may not even. Yeah.
Oh, Achilles Toker. That's right. There was you can just read it out. I'm glad we took notes on this. The second coordinate brought me to a field of vision where I had individuals around me, and the focus was on a particular being, Achilles Toker female. Now, the Achilles Toker are a regressive race for the most part. Of course, there's going to be benevolent and malevolent of every race, but this particular one defected to our side. Alice. It was something like that.
So the gist of this basically is stating is that in the future, as the Alliance can, of course, after planet Earth gets liberated, many other planets with these more negative regressive races are going to start flipping. So maybe they'll turn more neutral, and then eventually, I guess they just get sent to turn to positive. I don't know. Kill a Toker could ever be. I don't know. I guess this one was positive. I guess she helped out the Alliance.
Yeah, she brought her technology in. There's definitely more to find on this particular vision, but I saw these spire-like objects with these growth sacs on the side, and they were growing some kind of organism. And then let's see. Oh yeah, and then she showed us like all of the areas within this galaxy that the Achilles Toker have settlements or bases, or it was a really cool view because it was like a zoomed out view of the galaxy, and there were highlighted areas of everywhere that the Achilles Toker had, like I said, bases or settlements or concentrations. And I guess the reason for that is, because I think a majority of them are trying to defect or something. But it gave us the ability to track them more. We have to look into more of that one because there's more to that. There's more to the reason why we were given that ability. And there's also something we need to discover about the beings that were inside those growth sacs, because I'm not really sure. I feel like they were up to no good with them. And I think it was being exposed. And then what was the third? We did a third set of coordinate as well.
Well, there's one that you were on that prison right here, DC.
There was like a dud coordinate that I'm not really sure. I think I was just seeing something random, to be honest. Yeah, it was that that one, 236202. I was seeing something going on a planet that had mantis beings, and there really wasn't anything to it. Sometimes when you do viewing, you get if there's no intended target given to you by the person that's conducting the session, you may find something random, and that's what happened there. So then we moved on to the next coordinate there. If you want to scroll back up there, James, there's one more. Yeah, it was that 4, go down. It was the 4. Yeah, the 482015. Yeah, that was the Great Ball. That was a training exercise, I believe, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a training exercise. So, for any of you guys that know of the game StarCraft, okay, that game was not created on accident. It is disclosure. This particular race that I saw during this regression, they resembled the Protoss quite a bit. And this was a particular mission that we were supposed to use a technology that was allowing us to portal in and basically get to what's the word I'm looking for? Get to a waypoint or a nexus point or a point of interest, so that we could carry out a mission. And we were practicing using this particular technology because if you don't use it right, you could do damage to yourself, and you might trap yourself. There was a follow-on lucid dream I had the other night, actually, and it was a memory that was being given back to me about portal travel and how. In fact, here let me just read what I wrote, because I immediately wrote this down. So, more portal entry training tonight. It was a big ordeal, and safety was a big deal amongst everyone. They said if you enter into one of those things the wrong way, you could come out on the other side, inside out, upside down, or potentially die. They rewarded us for smart jumps. Okay, and then the follow-on to that had something to do with anklets I was wearing. It may or may not have been related, but I wrote this as well. So also, I found a way to slip out of my anklets tonight. They scared me a bit. Though, and almost allowed them to detonate for cheating. So these anklets, if you slip out of them, they'll detonate. So it was definitely a form of some kind of slavery or bondage. But we have to remember, the regressive side of super soldier work was done against our will, and oftentimes we were slaves. So a lot of the memories that I've had recently are of escaping certain situations. There was one particular vest that I had on that if you could slip out of, you would then become free of some sort of containment. And then the same thing with the anklets as well. So that was quite interesting. But that, going back to the coordinates there, that particular mission was interesting because it was a big team effort. We all had this ability to open a portal in front of us, enter that portal, and set a destination point for it. And when you would come out on the other side, you would have to make sure you had enough energy to portal out of there as well. So it was the training was to manage the ability to manage that tech. And we were training somewhere trying to basically obtain a relic or something, or some kind of landmark, that we were supposed to.
Autocorrect really mucks up your message, doesn't it, AI?
It was like a cash flow flag type of training. But in the beginning, it didn't seem that way. In the beginning of the regression, I thought we were on a mission, and then I saw more of the, the event, and it just turned out to be a training. So,
wow. Okay, well, I've got something. This is what I have from Dr. Michael Wolf about portal tech. Well, it's not too much on here anyway, but let's see here. He says, well, I guess going back to the Area 51 complex, he says it's the size of Rhode Island, contains about 100,000 staff members. The base is many levels deep into the earth, with each level requiring higher and higher levels of clearance, with the deepest level restricted to only hybrids and extraterrestrials. Area 51 connects to other facilities and underground shuttle system that travels at speeds of 1,000 miles an hour to 3,000 miles per hour. The facility also has jump rooms and portal tech, which Wolf learned about at the mess hall.
Wow.
Dr. Wolf did not have access to portal technology. It said that portal tech is very dangerous to your aura and body because the portal modifies your own quantum field into the portal's vibration. This places you in a state of quantum flux, which requires a med bed to fix. He also states that as you approach the portal, that it's very energetic and you can feel the hair on your arms or whatever.
Yeah, it was a big deal, man. Like when I had the memory given back to me about the training, it was safety was a major part of it for sure.
Okay. And the other thing I want to comment here, this was in my book about Muni and programmable matter. So programmable, yeah, I guess yeah, you're right. Okay. So my digital copy was being handled by a male reptilian by the name of Muni. He looks brown with green scales. He's 8 foot tall, and his job is to train my digital copy to become a super soldier. He appears to be part of some of the lower reptilian slave castes. Nearby, there are 4 cages with 50 kids each being trained to become super soldiers. I'm located in pod number 4. There are boys and girls here, but most of them are brown and black kids. Some of these kids are from other planets. They're some kind of Zulu tribe planet. The ones who fail the training are eaten or harvested for adrenochrome. My digital copy is here. All of us are in this pod are named after the pod leader, Munin. When I graduate, eventually they're going to give me a number. But because, we don't really have a name at this point.
That was the Muni, like the MUNE apostrophe something, right? It was like a weird name. I remember that.
Yeah, AI. They use a lot of kids at the Montauk Chair program as well. They don't mind throwing the kids under the bus.
Yeah.
My digital clone can shapeshift. So basically, they're training how to shapeshift back and forth from a 6-year-old boy into the body of a huge super soldier. This super soldier form can vary with different types of guns. Some look like phasers, machine gun rounds, or lasers, which come out in 3 directions. These weapons pop out of his body from an implant located in the cerebral cortex. They use programmable matter to make these devices, which is camouflaged and controlled by implants linked to my arm. The weapons can vary based on thought. So so Colin and I we're working on that project. Thank you, Colin, for helping me on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything you want to add to that?
Well, there was a question about timeline recognition and remote viewing, and oftentimes you don't actually know. You can teach yourself to figure that stuff out. You basically have to understand what the underlying vibration of a certain timeline feels like, and then if you can remember that or try to mimic that same vibration, it helps you. Like you have to do a lot of remote viewing in order to really get a hold of like understanding timelines and whatnot. But until you get to that point, you have to put like multiple sessions together to start understanding how certain things played out. So
okay, so should we go ahead? Is there any other topics, or should we do the last topic?
Well, I wanted to say something, in response to a recent video I saw. I'm not going to say who this individual was. I'll leave that up to you, Jake. But these channels are not monetized. All right. So people that may think we're making money off of these, experiences or telling people about them and understanding how things, might play out. There's no money being made here. All right. I want to make that clear because, it's important, because that's not what we're here to do. And also, like a lot of the people that actually legitimately did have a service in the SSP, it was done so against their will. And when you begin to remember traumatic events, and have to have your memories given back to you that were traumatic and a lot of things that were done against your will, people tend to be very damaged. And it's important to understand that also. It's easy to discredit somebody, because of a past or some things that may have been done. But that does not mean that what they experienced or saying that they experienced, it doesn't mean that didn't happen. So it's important to understand that, because recently there have been some comments made that really try to discredit this community and make us look like fools. A lot of this stuff we didn't ask for it, okay? And we don't have to be on here explaining all this to you guys. if we, really didn't believe that it was for the betterment of, the collective. And there's going to be a lot of changes coming up here in the next 7 years alone. And it's important that, if I'm told through an experience that I have to share certain things, I'm going to do so. I'm pretty new to the scene, but I'm not new to experiencing. And I've gained a lot of memories back, and I'm one of those, one of the people that are going to continue to gain memories back, just like many of you guys, in the chat that had experiences that, may not have come out to share them yet. That day is coming for you. Whether you choose to share with people or not is up to you. But what happened to you, you don't want to necessarily think that it's, it's crazy and it's not real, because a lot of it is, there were many of us that were involved in this. And if you're attracted to watching these videos, you probably were part of the programs. All right. So I just want to make that clear.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I've been doing this for so many years. When I first started out, the hate was just so bad. And it's kind of funny. I actually let my friend, she has a free energy, her channel's free energy special interest group. And so the goal is to get free energy research technology out there. And I let her be a moderator on my channel. And she commented, James, how do you put up with the people on your show are so mean? I'm like, well, I know what is true, and I have these memories, and I have my research, and these other people are wrong. So that's why I keep doing it, because I know I'm right, and they're not. So ultimately, I'm going to keep doing it, and eventually, I know disclosure is coming, and we're all going to be vindicated, or whatever it is. Public platform. We've even talked about this, Colin. There might be even a time where maybe even Donald Trump would even start recognizing the super soldiers and the SSP veterans for what the service that we've gone through in person.
Well, that was a big part of what I was told, and that's starting like now. One of the goals was over the next 7 years, to return, the memories and the energy to the people that were involved. That's a big deal, there was a lot of energy taken from people that they didn't ask for it. So it's coming back to us.
Yeah, I guess I'll answer this. So why with this company, why do they allow this info through my channel, or why should they not shut it down? So there are other channels out there what you would call a controlled disclosure.
Now, what did he say gets shut down a lot?
To the people that were involved. That's a big deal, there was a lot of energy taken from people that they didn't ask for it. So it's coming back to us. Yeah, I guess I'll answer this. So why with this company, why do they allow this info through my channel, or why should they not shut it down? So there are other channels out there what you would call a controlled disclosure time.
Okay, Tricky, you have a good night, mate. God bless you.
That the SSP brought in certain individuals, and I won't say their names, but you might know who they are by the problems they've been creating. So these individuals, the goal was to let people know about the benefits of the SSP without telling them about the child trap. I can't say it on YouTube. The human thing going on where they're abducting humans, sending off world, converting them to slaves or cyborgs. So that's the most insidious part of all this. So, there is opposition, but I'm just gonna keep doing it because I know it's right. So. Here, if this helps some of you guys that might be skeptical, I just want to show you something. Okay. It might be hard to see it. Hold on. Yeah, the lighting is really bad. I don't think that's visible. I'm trying to show you a portal that opened. Okay, portal. Yeah, but fuck. Are you able to see anything? It's just a bright light. Yeah, it's just yeah. Well, can you send it to me quickly right now? Yeah. And then I'll download it. So somebody's commenting here. You no real injuries because from no real, first of all, they don't use bullets in the SSP. So that just shows you really don't know what you're talking about. I mean, there are rail guns out there, but even that's very primitive. So it's not even worth.
Yeah, people like, okay, so yeah, the munitions that we have conventionally here on Earth are very, very rare to find. I mean, we're talking about high energy weapons are the main form of weaponry, okay? And also, the avatar that we may be in this particular timeline is not the same avatar that we're in every time, okay? And also, the energy, our soul, or part of it, can also be pulled into other timelines, which is what has been happening to me lately. All right, and I'm here to tell you exactly what's going on. And here, let me just say this: you don't have to believe me, okay? But it's whether you believe the message. Does it resonate with you or does it not resonate with you? Look, if it doesn't resonate with you, then it's probably not for you. Okay, but if you resonate with the message, follow it. See where it takes you. Okay, I'm not the end all be all of this fucking, this group of people we love in the SSP. So there's many of us out there. I'm just one, and there's a lot of people that.
Okay, he's winding up. I'm going to go to Rebecca Rose. Super Soldier Talk, Rebecca Rose, Dolce, twinning, and time travel. Should have started with this.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Super Soldier Talk. Today is April 10th, 2023. So here we are, 2023, and we still haven't got our full disclosure yet, but there's lots of work to do, and that's why we have Rebecca Rose here to share her amazing story of being a experiencer, a multi-dimensional galactic experiencer in the secret space program. And thank you all the listeners also for coming on here today. I know this is short notice. We had plans of having this all scheduled, hashed out a couple of days ago, but because of Easter and all that, everything got set back. But it doesn't matter. We're going to have a great show here today. All right. And thank you also, Rebecca, for coming on here. How are you doing today?
Hey, it's awesome to see you. We haven't done an interview since 2020, so it's great to be here and to have actually met at the graphing conference last year.
Just 3 weeks old, guys.
It's even better. So good to be here.
Yeah. So that is coming up this year in April. I think it's 22 to 25th. I think so. Go check the description section of this video. It's the Journey to Truth conference in Grafton, Illinois, and go get yourself a ticket. The hotel is actually sold out, but there's still room for purchasing the ticket for this conference, and also probably a meal plan there too. So okay, great. And let's go ahead and I'll start with reading out your bio. So Rebecca Rose is a multidimensional galactic experiencer currently serving the collective with her work as an intuitive seer and channel. As a lifelong contactee, she was originally targeted for her desirable psychic attributes. She was taken to work in a multitude of dark programs from her earliest years, a path that was facilitated by her family members working the deep state. In her last interview, she mentioned that her father worked for Lockheed, and so after abductions to work, I guess she worked for the Germans on the moon. She was sent to Montauk and survived. Today, we're also going to go into some of that Montauk timeline. Further Lab experiences landed her on Mars, where she was engineered as a cyborg and weaponized for Mars Defense Force. She was trained as a pilot, killer, cloned many times. She was eventually sold to the Draco Empire. In the outer reaches of the solar system beyond the Kuiper belt, she was tasked with patrolling a galactic slave trade hub commandeered by the Draco and protecting a significant planetary portal on Planet X. I guess that's under merchant marine fleet. She can explain more about that just a bit. But as an adult recovering from years of dehumanizing SSP involvement, Rebecca credits her strong meditation practice as her main healing ally.
Yeah.
Trained in the ancient spiritual traditions of Tibet, Rebecca engages in silent sitting.
I'm pretty sure the Montauk chair was the first time they conquered time travel.
Practices and inner energy work that assisted the return of her memory and putting pieces of her life back together. She also does these sessions for other people. And we'll go that just a bit. But from the vantage point of the soul and the perspective of deep healing, Rebecca says, I came here for this. I know I came to explore the deepest, darkest, and most savage belly of the beast so that I could experience it firsthand and be part of its undoing. Rebecca also has a vast array of helpers from many different realms assisting her. Her life family includes a Nordic mate from Procyon, an indigenous mother and father from a previous lifetime with the Crow people, and through her own experience and continual work with higher energies, she's been given resources to assist others in recovering from their own most horrifying experiences, bring light to darkness. So visit Rebecca's website at RebeccaRoseBarfoot.com, and so you can also sign up for a session. Apparently, I guess you're booked till July now.
I'm booked almost into July, but I'm available. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, James. Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on here today. So, I guess going back to the Galactic Slave Trade, was that actually a merchant marine fleet that you were with, or is this something entirely else, different?
I've never had it come back to me in my memories as a merchant marine fleet per se. No, I was. We can talk about this. In the moon, the German base on the moon was at that time. This is back in the 70s. I'm 50 now, so this is a long time ago. But at the time, it was a slave trade hub, and as was the Planet X and the Kuiper Belt, where I was owned by the Draco. It's also the same thing. So, yeah.
Well, how about in our last interview, we was a little more informal. We were just having more of a discussion, but this time I'd like to allow you to speak more. But maybe could you tell us a little bit about maybe the galactic slave trade? If maybe you could describe some of the slave markets, if you've ever been in one, what it's like, how they, I don't know. I want to start with that.
Okay, we're just diving into that. Well, yeah. So my familiarity with the slave trade, I think we could talk about it as part of my mission. Like, I came here to explore. I have a higher avatar on a galactic ship, in I guess tandem time, right? And from that avatar I incarnated here, to learn more about the slave trade. We wanted to understand more about what was going on within the bowels of that. And again, a long time ago, I think a lot of that has dissipated, and things are not as degraded and depraved as they were at that particular time in the 70s and 80s. But my familiarity, like I said, is from working in the German base when I was little, and working directly as a psychic operative with beings they had in captivity there, and they were making clones, experimental beings, and a lot of different hybrid type of beings. So humans were involved in the slave trade, trading with human hybrids and human DNA, but also ET type beings, beings I couldn't even have any names for, that were captive to the Germans at that time, and also the connection to Dulce as well. So I didn't have a need to know or need to be in the market or the trade process or at a bartering negotiating table, so to speak. I was little, I was a kid, I was under their influence. I was operated by them, but I would not have had the status to really know the inside of all of that in this, maybe in the way you're thinking of. Yeah.
Well, maybe could you describe a little bit more about the mechanics? But I mean, the reasons why the trade itself. Yeah. So, for instance.
Yeah, sure.
They're trading us. We are their product.
They're trading us.
What are they getting in return? Right. So go ahead.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's all. We've talked about this probably 1,000 times on this channel. DNA is the currency of everything. DNA technology, but through beings. I mean, when I was on the moon, I was. The Germans, the Greys, and the Draco were there. I was mostly interfacing with the Draco. to get my orders and to be trained by the Draco. And the Draco always seemed like they were the face of everything going on. Wherever the Draco are present, I have found that they are the top dog.
Yeah,
that's it. And they were building an empire, you know, I think also involved.
Exactly right, Bas. The Glocker. So they had time travel in 1945. Here we are 70 years later. Wow.
Like adrenochrome back in the day. This is, again, a long time ago, but making the Draco rich was one of the things that was going on. That's what I saw. I mean, just speaking from my own experience, like, what is the point of this? You know, trading humans, human parts, human endocrine system secretions, and like I said, the clones and the hybrids and all of that. To other races, and I don't know if I can fully unpack that. I mean, off-world, out of the solar system, way beyond what the human mind can fathom. You know, when I was owned by the Draco out on Planet X, that hub was, I don't have human language to describe how big it was, how powerful it was, and how much was going on there, which was why they needed so many assets to protect their investment in that whole market. So on the moon, I guess we could talk about the moon, my job on the moon. I mean, I was 4 years old when I was initiated into all of this by the Draco, and they took me to the moon back and forth from I was raised in New Hampshire, and they brought me back and forth at night. And this was not the start of the 20 and back, so this seemed more to be of I would say, an experimental program. And I think they were getting my body adjusted to something, my biology adjusted so I could later work the Dulce jump gate that connected the moon and Dulce. But like I said, they kind of broke me in slowly there, using me to psychically interface with the beings that they had in captivity. And I was supposed to be stealing their information, or we could say taking a snapshot of their DNA and their biological markers and dimensional, how would we say, like their unique dimensional stamp or timestamp, we could say, and taking all that information through my awareness, my consciousness, and relaying it to a central database. But I always felt like with them, I was meant to befriend the beings, but also to betray them. And it's a mark that's still in me, like this is kind of programming to, it's like the victim perpetrator programming, the aversion. I, as the victim, was feeling like I was the perpetrator, like doing bad things. And you know this, that's one of the main programs that they're instilling in us, mind control programs, that the victim will always blame themselves and never get out of what's been done to them. So I always felt really bad, even as a little 4, 5, 6-year-old kid, what was happening, and going in there and befriending these beings that were in captivity for all these dark processes that the Germans and the Draco and the Greys were doing to them, and then turning against them, like to be made to befriend them, and then, like, yeah, absolutely to betray them. So over time, how do I say this? In my early time of talking, maybe in the interview that you and I had a few years ago, like, I didn't know that I was being sent to Dulce. And I would describe like these cages and this dim light and this orange glow and the stench and the filth and the feeling of being in hell realm. As I described it as, like, this sounds a lot like what I've heard coming out of Dulce, New Mexico. But I didn't know that that was actually what I was describing, because the process of going through that jump gate felt so seamless in a way, from the moon, German base on the moon, into Dulce. It was like going, it felt to me, as it comes through my memory, it was like going into, you know, the next room of my home. I'm sure it must have been a little more complex than that, but to my child's mind, a child drugged and controlled in a certain way, like, I didn't know the difference. And so that came to me, those memories came to me at the time after you and I last spoke, and it explained a lot to me about the memories I was having. The breadth and depth of Dulce was something that you could wander around in there forever, down in that I call the dungeon, and never know the beginning and the end of what was happening down there with the Greys. And I never saw humans other than human captors. They wanted the tunnel, the cargo from the tunnel, to supply human supply from the tunnels, right? But I never saw humans in charge. They might have been on the upper levels. But the memories there are pretty I mean, it's dark and it's disturbing, and I just remember a smell and keeping my kind of face averted. So, do you want any clarifications up to that point, James?
Yeah, you gotta explain. Tell us how old you were and why were you at Dulce?
Right. Yeah. I was a little older, so they started taking me to my first abductions were to go be with the Germans and the Draco on the moon. And Dulce started later. It was probably around, let's see, 7, 8, around that time period. 6, 7, 8. And they wanted the child's frequency. So, in my understanding, and just a sort of soundbite on how does this is oversimplifying, but I would say, how does a jump gate work? It's compressing space and time. But if a certain frequency range isn't maintained for the gate, they could lose cargo, precious cargo, let's say, in interdimensional space, right? So they need, and because it's so dense, it's very degraded what they're bringing up to the moon to be traded off world from Dulce, right? And they need a child's, I want to say, like an innocence frequency to help maintain a certain, like a frequency range within the gate, so it'll operate properly and nothing will get lost. And like I said, I touched on this just briefly, that it seemed to me that I didn't understand for a long time, why were they taking me back and forth to the moon from my home, abducting me at night over the years. I think it was to train my biology because I was going in a ship. I would go into a substation to get to the moon. And it can be hard on the body. I mean, human biology cellular biology is not meant to be, it's meant for Terra, it's meant for Earth, right? But I think all of those back and forth trips to the moon were training my biology to withstand the rigors of going back and forth through that gate. Again, it's going to be hard on it. It'll be extremely hard on adult biology, but I think because children they're still porous. If you think about a small child, they're not, when I look at it psychically, their energetics are not entirely wed with their biology. They're not entirely formed yet. And so I don't want to say quite that it's easier on a child's physiology, but in effect, relative to an adult body, it would be a little bit easier, and a child can withstand that back and forth. So I was basically an escort for cargo. Is a pretty sterilized word. I mean, bodies, body parts, hybrids, clones, and so on that were coming up from Dulce. Yeah, does that make sense, James?
Yep.
Yeah, we got lots of questions. Let's start with, did you ever witness Nightmare Hall? And maybe you can also describe if you saw any aliens down there in Dulce.
I remember the grays, and then I remember beings that seemed to be, I don't know anything about Nightmare Hall. I don't know what that is. The whole thing felt like fucking Nightmare Hall. I mean, the whole thing was one big nightmare. But it sounds like that's a specific location in the lower reaches of Dulce. Is that correct?
Yeah, was it Thomas Costello, I think, described it. The different cages in there, and with what they call chimeras, the hybrid creatures.
Yes, they had. Yes, so I don't know a name that's called Nightmare Hall, but yes, absolutely, 100%. There were animals down there that felt like, I don't know, they came from inner Earth or something. There were things I cannot name. I do not have linear English words to describe. I remember a lot of light beings, light emanating from the cages, and beings that seemed extremely upper dimensional. I do not know how they co-opted them for the purpose of, what they were doing with all these experiments in the lab. I don't know how they got them down there. So, maybe this is congruent with his description of Nightmare Hall. Absolutely. Yeah.
What about different types of aliens? Did you witness grays, reptilians?
Grays. And I never saw reptilians down in Dulce. I never saw it. That was the domain, 100% of the grays. 100% of the grays. And I know there were so many different experiments going on, and so much of, them, part of that was them trying to, save their own wrecked biology, their own savage DNA, because they'd experimented on themselves, they'd been experimented on by others, and they were in a degraded biological state in many ways with their own genetics. But it was also trading human body parts, and like I said, they were very interested in the human endocrine system and the secretions from those glands. that was a byproduct going off world, going off of Earth, and I think out of the solar system.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what all races are most interested in the human glandular system, but
I'm going to share I think it's a 5-second clip. So if you have any kids here, you may not want to look. This is a chimera. I don't know if it's down in Dulce, but I was told that this is authentic video. It's pretty creepy, but I guess sometimes we do creepiness on here, if that's okay.
Go for it, James. Yeah.
Okay. Here's our friend over. Oh, it's on 2 seconds. So yeah, they're creating all these type of creatures down there. So this apparently is real. Yeah. So we've got a huge problem here on this planet where humans are being abducted and converted not only to slaves, but these.
What was that?
Here's our friend over. Oh, it sounds pretty creepy, but I guess sometimes we do creepiness on here, if that's okay.
Go for it, James. Yeah.
Okay. Here's our friend over. Oh, it's on 2 seconds. So yeah, they're creating all these type of creatures down there. So this apparently is real. Yeah, so we've got a huge problem here on this planet where humans are being abducted and converted not only to slaves, but these creatures sold off to. Okay, yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Well, so I guess on a higher note, I could say that when I look at Dulce Lab now, like in our current time, it looks empty. When I look at it psychically, and I keep doing this and going back and looking, did I get this right? And it feels like it's defunct. I don't know if that's information that's circulating around, if you've heard this from anywhere else. And it doesn't mean all of it has stopped, but I just say when I look at it, Dulce in particular feels like things have moved on from there and gotten really quiet. Just my impression, so I thought I would add that.
Oh, do you see a bunch of water down there flooded out?
I don't see water. It just feels empty, and I smell residual smell psychically. But yeah.
Okay.
And Dulce as well, I was shown this psychically a couple years ago, is that that it was built upon a benevolent portal that would have been used by the Apache, the Native Americans, to commune with benevolent beings a long time ago, and the Rays got a hold of it. So, is there an important piece of information there that has gone back to higher hands as we're seeking to get out of this morass on this planet right now? That's potentially a hopeful note. Yeah.
All right, more questions about Dulce. How about could you describe what does the portal room actually look like? And also, hold on, what does the portal look like? And is it modern or ancient?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So these memories come through my child's mind. And, child remembers it as being just this, it feels just like air. It feels like space. It feels like I'm in this. My vision could see a room, but it actually feels through my body, my soma, my sentience, it feels like there's nothing around me, like I'm just moving through space. So that's not congruent with our linear 3D reality, right? Like to see one thing, but also to know that that's not what's actually going on, if that makes sense. So it's hard to describe it in linear terms. It's a non-linear phenomenon, I would say. But it always, like I said, it always seemed very seamless. And it didn't seem like there was a crazy, technological, all these bells and whistles to the tech that was visible to me, at least in my memory as I understand it. Very seamless and very pared down. I mean, I'm sure jump gate technology has changed over time, and depending on which group they got the tech from and so on and so forth, there's different iterations of jump gate tech. Is that something you feel as well? That there could be different?
Oh yeah, certainly. The jump rooms, they look like an elevator that curves around, according to Andrea Basaggio. But some people describe these portals. There's David Lotherton on here who channeled Dr. Michael Wolf, who was part of Majestic, and he described what he just stated is that as you approach the portal, your hair would stick up because there's so much energy.
Yeah.
Change of vibration.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah. I feel and remember those kinds of changes, that's exactly like you said that well. The energetic changes and the perception that I have that is multidimensional and not third density. That's what I remember. those are the signatures of the jumper for me. Yeah.
What about traveling through the portal? Does it damage? Well, if it damages your does it damage your DNA? If it does, why would it do it? And if you have information on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. My perception is that it can degrade cellular biology, like the molecular structure, the atomic molecular bonds and the atomic structure will be degraded. How does that speak to, is the DNA changed? I think over time, if you just did it and did it and did it, like if you use a regen tank over and over and over, it will fuck you up. Like it's not, you can't keep doing that. I think the same is true with this particular technology. And I think they use a variety of children to, so they wouldn't just work one kid to death. They'd switch them out and switch them out and switch them out. It seemed to be always children operating the gate.
AI, she's consistent with every other whistleblower. So, I think these guys are legit. Otherwise, I wouldn't be playing them. And they started sounding like they're talking crap, I'd get rid of it and go to something else.
Did you require being put into a med bed after going through the portal?
I don't think so. And that's what's kind of weird, you would think, right? Like back and forth, what the hell? I don't have memory of that. I don't think where they were invested enough in me to actually care to do that. And like I said too, is that why they were taking me back and forth to the moon in this very precise way over a number of years before they got me working on jumping to train the biology again. And all of this predicated on the fact that, it was written into my life plan, let's say. My own agency helped forge the life plan that I would eventually be sent to Mars in 82 for a twinning back. So this is all kind of prepping me biologically, psychologically, psychically, and so on for a much bigger agenda later on in space. I think it all dovetails, when I look at the big picture of this, it's pretty sophisticated from start to finish.
Thank you. All right. What does it look like as you're traveling through the portal?
It looks like not much, to be honest. Like it's so fast. It's not, to me, as I recall it, it's not even, there's not a lot going on. There's this multidimensional experience of change happening, but I don't remember a visual of it. And this is why, that's why I didn't even know I was leaving the moon for Dulce, because there wasn't a lot of signature of visual or there wasn't so much to differentiate one place from the other, at least in my recall. So sorry to disappoint everybody. There wasn't a lot of, it was a little bit casual, like almost too casual. Yeah. That's my experience. And I was also drugged. I was a kid that was drugged, I was abused, and I was just looking at the ground, doing the job that they had programmed me to do. So, there could be missing links in there that I'm not recalling. Go ahead.
Well, how big is this portal and what color was it and what did it actually look like when you looked at it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I'm just opening a door. It's like just moving through a dark field. There's a darkness around it, a gray, black kind of nondescript, really. It wasn't like this shimmering, we might think of a portal as a shimmering light affect, having a similar, like a high level frequency attached to it. But I think this may have also been to, to disguise it. We don't want to announce what's going on here. Because the moon at the time too was supposed to be kind of a regulated space. And having this connection to Dulce would have been, was this a little bit rogue? Do they really want to announce that this is going on right here with a big, neon explosion of hey, a jump gate is here? So I think that might have been why there wasn't so much visual stimulus connected to all this.
So before you step through the portal, it actually looked brown and black. It's like, okay.
Yeah, gray black.
And it looked like a door, like a regular
door. It looks like almost like a shadow. Like you're stepping into a shadow and then you're gone. And you're opening through a corridor into Dulce.
Okay. So once you got to Dulce, what happened to you then? What were they doing to you? Or if that's
I was just going back and forth. They would kind of go in, they'd have something they wanted to load. I would step aside, let them, put in this almost like a non-dimensional space. I mean, we could see it like as an elevator, a room or a shaft. I would just get out of the way, and they'd move cargo in, and I would. A lot of times I was just looking at the ground. You know, that's how we dissociate and just disengage from what's happening. So there'd be sometimes I was bringing data back, but usually it was beings, body parts, and like I said, endocrine system stuff, and you know, just go back and go back and go back and go forth and back between those locations. I recall being, you know, wandering around through those through the maze of like cages, the beings in cages, and at times I was trying to go and just connect with these beings who seemed so interesting to me. That was not part of my job, but it was what I wanted to do, and to connect with them from a place of communion and heart, and not from a place of I'm being abused and I'm helping abuse them and they're being abused, but something just trying to bring, I don't know, you know, a child's curiosity to connect with these unusual and somewhat beautiful beings. And there was that. Yeah.
All right. Were there other children around you as well being experimented in this way?
There were other kids, like I said, the other kids who were operating the jump room, and it's weird, they didn't want us to connect. Like, I can understand this, they didn't want us to bond. No human bonding is wanted to happen there. So they would keep us apart from each other. And there were kids who were also serving other functions down in Dulce. I don't know that I know all there is, you know, about that, because I wasn't allowed to interact as much as I would have wanted. But you know, children, I mean, we know this from the SSP. They took me into the SSP formally when I was 9. The children are so useful because we're so porous. We can do whatever they need. Adults can't do it because we're so conditioned in a certain direction, and we have those psychic abilities intact. So I think that the children were also used to keep the beings who were captive kind of in a certain frequency range, in a certain, you know, using them in a way to manipulate them and keep them in a certain mind state or in a certain mood or in a certain feeling. You know, the child could make you happy, make you sad, light you up, augmenting the emotional state, so to speak, of the beings, and that's a place from which they would alter.
Yeah, well, it's good to see you.
Make alterations in the DNA. Like when I was the child who was doing that and kind of getting their information, they wanted the beings in a certain frequency range, and in that certain frequency range, you know, say friendliness, happiness, light, certain things will light up in the DNA and the biology that they actually wanted to eliminate. So find out where those happy vibes are. I'm simplifying this too much, but find out where that is, and let's delete that from the program. We don't want that. So let's get that out of there. They wanted, in many ways, they wanted to create beings who could do all the functions of, you know, have the higher dimensional capacities, but without sentience. We don't want all those messy emotional entanglements. We don't want, you know, all the things that make us human or that make benevolent beings benevolent. They wanted to get that out of there. So I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, that actually maybe answers one of the other questions I had earlier, is why you are involved in this whole program.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Yeah. And it's all, we can talk to you about, like, I hadn't gotten to the 20 and back yet, and this is helping instill a lot of distortions and inversions in my humanity. The swapping, I mentioned the swapping the victim perpetrator role, and we learn the betrayal is the currency, right? Betray or be betrayed.
Yeah.
That's what I'm learning here. There's a lot of deviance inside all of that, and also learning, right, that I will be mastered. I am not my own. I'm not autonomous. I'm always looking to somebody else for guidance, show me what to do, tell me what I should do, and expecting to be manipulated, expecting to be abused, expecting to be drugged, and so on and so forth. This is priming me for everything else I'm going to experience at Montauk and later on in Mars. So it's just getting at me early and continuing on. And this was light duty, and this was light programming compared to the things that came later. So it was all a very precise progression over time and over the years.
Okay. I want you to continue on that just a bit, but let's finish one last question here with Dulce. Did you connect with any of the beings down there that were in the cages, and like what messages did they tell you? If you remember what they look like, could you describe that as well?
Yeah, I remember, well, I think I said this, just an orange glow, like beings that seem like they have this peach colored glow, and that they seem to be more made of light than substance. I don't know how to describe that. I could say it's like an upper dimensional quality, but I don't have names like, oh, these beings are from Sirius, or they're from inner Earth, or so the animals seem to be from inner Earth. I don't even know. I mean, they weren't all beings that had like a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, a star configuration. Some of them seem to be like not. I don't even know where they came from. I remember exchanging not linear English messages, but this love in a place like that. I mean, it's so strange, right? It's so strange.
Wow.
Lit up with a kind of love. I mean, think about that. Yeah. So again, we're talking about energy and frequency and vibration and conveyance through that means, rather than a message of, take good care of yourself, or please don't do this to me, or whatever it might be. And again, this is coming, I've said this before already, but it's coming through the mind of a child that's been, myself, who's, the memories come in a different way, and they're not always so linearly oriented. They have more emotional and multidimensional qualities to them because of what's happening for me in the situation I'm in. Yeah, but that's a great question. That's a great question. I think the nature of these memories too is that more continues to unfold over time. But when all of you guys know this, who are retrieving memories from the programs, a lot of them are really hard and difficult and emotional. So I think there's a part of me that has put the brakes on recalling more from this place. Like, okay, I have enough. That's it. I don't want to know more. In a way, to be really frank. Yeah.
Well, do you have enough information to answer this question? Was there different races of children at Dulce?
Ooh, that's a good question. I remember different races of children. You mean like ET children, or I remember little white kids. Yeah.
As in like little white kids?
No, like little Caucasian kids. Oh. But I think you mean like, did I see hybrids? There were also there were hybrid gray human hybrids there. I think that's what you're meaning. Yes. In different stages of development. Some of the lab experiments, there was a section of lab where some of the beings took a really long gestation. I don't know exactly what was in all of those pod type things, but some of them seemed like they were growing so slowly it would take years for them to develop. And those were high prize, experiments, or high prize creatures, high prize beings that they were getting out of that. Yeah.
All right. And what about the smell? Patty is asking, what did it smell like?
Oh God, like death. It just smelled like death and decay. I mean, to be honest, really bad smell. That's the closest approximation. I don't know if there's because we've got all the smell of the things that are not even coming from Earth. I don't know if there's an earthly way to describe it's like beyond death, but decay and stench and filth, and like a kind of a dampy smell in there too. Yeah, and it was always dark. It was never. I never saw. No, it's always dimly lit. It's not like, oh, we come in and flip the lights on. No. Because I think that also the light would bother some of the experiments and the beings that they had cooking, so to speak. The Greys don't like light environments. I think it's hard on their eyes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how about we go to the next question or topic, I guess. How did you end up in a 20-year and back program?
Yeah, I was blaming my father. Yeah, I mean, largely because my father was working with the deep state military-industrial complex, and he was working in top secret with the naval intelligence. He went into the top secret classified world when I was about 3 or 4. I think prior to that, he'd only been working with a secret clearance. And it was all, I think it was through his own agency. I had visions in meditation, deep meditation, several days in a row, back in 2021 maybe, of my father in a conference room with 2 Greys, guys in Navy uniforms and guys in suits. They're pushing papers at him and they're saying, sign sign this. This is, and they're saying this is for the betterment of humanity, meaning myself. And I think also my brother was also in the programs. We had a tandem abduction experiences as kids, but anyway, I think my father was probably signing away my brother as well. My mother's side of my family had dark reptilian in her German bloodline and ritual abuse going back several generations into Germany. So we have a dark reptilian on my mom's side, and we have my father, who's a Zeta hybrid, coming in, being manipulated by his handlers within the military-industrial complex, and also by the Orion group. So I call it a MyLab family breeding program. I mean, my parents met in the Army in '65. It was a total setup. They got married in a month, not because my mother was pregnant, but because I think they were destined to create MyLab babies. When I look at it now, I mean, that's pretty sobering. I didn't want to look at that for a long time, but that's what I see. It's an absolutely perfect setup for that. So there's a lot. I mean, I could talk about my father for a long time, but that's kind of how I ended up being routed or kind of, how do we say, down a pipeline, the MyLab pipeline, the highway to MyLab. It was all over my years leading up to '82 when I was taken for the longer 20 and back. So, yeah.
Okay. Does your brother speak about his experiences to you?
James, we have some work to do on my brother. My brother, thank you. I mean, he's 4 years older. He spent his childhood reading sci-fi, drawing spaceships and aliens, and all of that. And it only came out last fall because I was asking him point blank, like, what do you remember from happening to you at night when we were kids? Turns out he was having the same, like, what I call night terrors. Like, I'm mute, I'm paralyzed. They're coming and taking me. I feel I'm being elevated or levitating out through the house or the wall or the ceiling. And he, just last year, it took us almost 50 years to get these memories together in tandem, right? That he would talk about this. Oh, the same thing was happening to me. I said, well, so what else? What else happened to you? But he shuts the conversation down every time. He's at a point in his life where he doesn't any longer believe that aliens are a thing. So that's why I say, man, we have some work to do on my brother. But hopefully that work will be done and he can come into clear knowing about his own experiences.
Thank you. All right. So how many 20-year backs have you done? Or how many?
As far as I know, one. But they seem, because I have some overlapping clone memories, it can feel like there was more, like there's more time than 20 years, because if you have multiple clones having experiencing time at the same time, it can feel like it's a little bit more. So that's a little confusing. But do you get my meaning? If you've got a few of you running around at the same time. Yeah. So as far as I know, it's just one. That's plenty. I don't need any more.
All right. And what about, so what roles do they primarily get you to do through your different clone bodies?
Yeah, this was all, so it took me to Mars. Standard, pretty standard going to Mars. They train you for a while. I'm already pretty psychically trained at that point. I'm already well aware that I'm not the master of my own experience and that somebody else controls me at all times. I've given myself over, assigned myself over to that reality. But they're training me. They first trained me. I mean, they start augmenting you bit by bit, but they train me psychically to operate, or telekinetically to operate a machine. Right? They do that first, and then they stuck me into a lot of simulated programs, like my memories of. And they're very clear when it's a simulated training experience, because I feel hyper adrenalized. Like I got like 50 Red Bulls and like they shot me up with amphetamines. And then they stuck me in this program to augment me and to augment my the internal program, because I'm being, how do we say, I'm being created into a cyborg. Ultimately, that's the program, but it happens over time. It's not immediate when I go there and I'm 9. So it's, again, a pretty precise A, B, C, D, like a timeline that they have in mind. So first it's being telekinetically operating a machine, a killing machine, a weaponized machine, and then over time I will become that machine. They trained me to pilot. That was a little later. That didn't happen right away. So piloting intervention for Defense Force and patrolling and protecting the bases, right? And they trained me on as a foot soldier or like combat on land as well. So I felt like Mars was like the place I was never going to leave. Like just kind of a lot happened there. But it was it just felt like it went on and on and on and on and on, and just like I didn't spend 20 years quite there, but it almost feels like it. You know, there's still more memories to unpack there. For as much of memories I do have, there's still a lot there that is you know, to be gotten. Yeah.
Let's discuss a little bit about Mars in just a bit. But before we do, I want you to describe, if you know it, okay, the moment you think they first abducted you for your 20-year back, like how
Yeah. Yes, I do. I absolutely remember that. Yeah. That was in September of '82. I was not yet 10. I would be 10 the next month, and I remember being, taken up through in this case it was through the side by my, the side of the house, and I remember moving as if in slow motion. In looking back through the kitchen windows, it was evening, and the kitchen light was still on, and I just knew that something bad was going to be happening to me, and it wasn't going to be like it was before. A lot of times there would be insectoids with my abductions up to that point. I don't remember like Aunt Beings as well as Grace being with me. At that point, I don't even remember beings accompanying me, but that's my very crystal clear memory of being and knowing there was this consciousness, that this is going to go bad and it's going to go on for a long time. That's the clearest I have. And also at the same time, I mentioned briefly an avatar that's on a benevolent ship with I would call them the Galactic Confederation. However, it's a Syrian ship. I just have always called them in a more family-like way. I've called them the Light Alliance. As soon as I call something the Galactic Confederation, I don't, it's like so official. I don't want to relate with it. But I also remember that same night of it's almost like a fragment or a split of my body, like a rag doll, going straight up into the ship, the benevolent ship, and meeting people there and them talking to me at this, like this is happening in tandem, the dark abduction, the light abduction, if you will, being taken at once. And that's, it speaks to how I was able to survive all this, because I think if I hadn't had that relationship and they hadn't preserved part of me that was really essential to my survival and my soul, that I wouldn't be here talking about all this today. I wouldn't have been able to come through all this without it. So that's also that memory is very, very clear on the same night. And I'm grateful that I can remember that, and that it's helped me heal. It's helped me contextualize all of this, so I understand the bigger picture of my soul's journey in it. Yeah. Okay.
Wow, so many questions. Let's start. How about could you respond quickly? So they are actually using time travel technology, right? You serve for 20 years. They re-age you, put you back.
Yeah, with that, I mean, I'm most familiar with the time stuff that was going on in Montauk. Yeah, we can talk about that down the line. There was age regression technology through the silver bullet in Montauk, but let me not digress. Yeah, let me not digress. Okay.
All right. Well, before we go to that, when they returned you, was your personality different? Did you like Penny Bradley? She mentioned that she started speaking in German, and her parents said, "Where'd you learn that?"
That's wild. I was starting to go downhill, but I wasn't speaking German. I did not speak German, and the Germans didn't know me. I wasn't involved with the Germans after the moon in those earlier years that I've mentioned already. I don't remember being with them, so I wouldn't have spoken German. But true, when I look at pictures from before that time and pictures after that time, there's a really stark and like a difference. Wow. A difference that makes me just want to cry, like it's so bad. And it was after that time that every year my teacher in school would like pull me aside and say, "Is everything okay at home?" And I would just sit there and cry, and I would not know what to say. Like, I guess everything's at home, but I feel really fucked up inside. I didn't say that, but that's, I could feel myself falling away. And over the years, eventually I was institutionalized because I didn't want to be alive anymore. But it took the better part of 10 years, or let's say 7, 8, 9 years for that to really, for me to get that far down into the depths.
Did you have self-infliction behaviors, cutting or anything like that?
I had really bad eating disorders. I was very, very thin. I'm almost 6 feet tall, and I weighed about 75 pounds by the time that I was hospitalized. I dropped out of school, and I had no friends, and I was just, in my room in the dark. Like really, it was bad. It was bad. And thankfully, no, I didn't go into cutting, but I think if I hadn't had all the weird eating starvation stuff, I probably would have resorted to cutting or something else. That was self-mutilation.
And those are what you would call alters, I guess. From This Is a Journey to Truth is asking, do you get triggered into these alters?
No, I don't. And I think that's, and yeah, thank you, Journey to Truth podcast. Hello. I think that's a great question. I think it's because I was up there, like I said, my friends on the benevolent ship and my mate from Procyon, Tyrion, were making sure that didn't happen. Because if that had happened, I wouldn't have gotten to the point of wellness I'm at now, so I can speak fairly coherently on your show, right?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah,
that's a really good question though, because that does happen. I see a lot of people as clients that are still kind of struggling with bleed through or slipping into some other reality of self. Sure, absolutely.
All right. Well, I think we've discussed that. Well, let's. How about the end part of this question? Do you remember when they discharged you? Like, did they pull you aside and say, "Well, I'm turning off the video recording, and I'm going to speak to you frankly. Earth still exists, and we're sending you back"? Did they remember anything like that?
I don't remember that. My last assignment, and well, I shouldn't say that. I've got other memories that are beyond that. I was going to say that my last assignment of recall was with the Draco, being owned by the Draco, because I was sold in the slave trade itself to the Draco, and that is the last recall. I want to say it's 20 back, but I don't remember where was the ending here. I remember leaving, but where's the memory of coming back in? It is unclear to me still. I do remember, I have some memories. Let me explain why I say like, oh, there's some other stuff that's come in that makes me think that wasn't the end. That I was sent to some, what I call suborbital substations with a skeleton crew, less than 10 people. We were, their designation or their solar system ID is based on its astronomical units, which is the distance from, this, or the Earth to the sun. And it seems like I'm in a but I'm not a super soldier anymore. Like they retired me to these sort of watching the atmosphere and patrolling for intruders. That it's a very, I want to say benign, not quite benevolent job, but I am owned by somebody else out there. So I'm on a little tangent here, but I don't remember, like, I know a lot of people have memory of the discharge. I don't have memory of that. Yeah, not very clearly of that.
But you do remember when you first got your memories back, and I know you mentioned that just briefly go into that, because you mentioned that in the last show we did.
Yeah.
What triggered it?
Yeah. I had a head injury in 2012. I was hit by a car on my bike. I had a terrible head injury. And it was in northern New Mexico, not far from Dulce, where I got hit. You can't make this up, man, right? And after that, things started to really unravel. I patched my life up and did my thing for a couple of decades, and then that happened, and things started coming up. I feel like the moment of the crash and the impact and the concussion, I was like, it was almost like being handed a disc, a CD, like, this is your story, this is what happened. I'm not going to show you everything now, but you have it now, it's in here. And over time, because my life was really hit bottom at that, this was 11 years ago, I started meditating. I didn't know what else to do. I just knew I was fucked up. And so meditation started to unlock things, because it takes me into a deeper brainwave state. We're leaving the beta brain state and going into alpha and deeper down, theta state, whatever. And that's a place my subconscious mind started to reveal a lot of things. And then as I got closer to my father's death in 2020, in the year and a half leading up to his death was when I started to get the really hardcore space stuff coming back.
Okay, so I don't know. Why don't you just tell us what you think about this? And if you don't want to answer it, what do you think about
how they didn't abuse me? The Light Alliance? No.
Yeah, the dark side of how. So you went through these programs.
Okay.
Yeah, why did they like?
Oh, I see. Yeah. No, that's a good question. And I would say to you, absolutely, that's a good question, because I have mentioned in the show here today that there was an element of my own agency in like signing up for all of this. From the perspective of the soul, what am I here for? If I hadn't gone and experienced all of those things, I don't see myself as a victim anymore at all. I mean, that's a way station on the journey, but it's not a place for me to camp out. I become a sovereign being again. again. But anyway, if I hadn't gone and experienced all that, I couldn't be speaking firsthand about all of these things. And it would take being in what I call the belly of the beast to be a voice of disclosure publicly. And I couldn't have done it without, couldn't do this now without the experiences. And they've taught me so much. Like if it wouldn't have been the programs, I would have found some really dark stuff to go through. Just that's how I am. I have extremes that I gravitate to in this lifetime, in this embodiment. It's my personality. I want to know. I wanted to know about this. And so the Light Alliance and those guys don't, it's not a matter of approving it, but we wanted to know about the galactic slave trade. And I learned a lot firsthand. So it was my own, we could say I vetted myself to come down and do this, and I don't regret it.
Can you describe exactly what is the Light Alliance?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I touched on this, let me deepen this or explain it a little better. The Light Alliance is just my sort of colloquial term for the Galactic Confederation. So it's, the Light Alliance is like the family name for that. My friends up there and my, really benevolent guardians, I also consider them my guardians in so many ways. Still, the Federation, we could debate for a long time. There's different factions of that. There's so much to it. And our ship was more about a lot of observation, not a lot of 3D intervention, other than like working with time and dimensions so that we could head off certain things of the past. But a lot of our we wanted to know about enslavement in this kind of quadrant of the galaxy. Yeah. That's probably a whole other show. So I hope I've explained that sufficiently.
Yeah, sure. I have so many more questions, but we'll just have to move on because we're only like halfway done here with topics tonight. Because I know we've got this one maybe even may take us a while. So your interactions with the reptilians and mantis. So why don't you just, I don't know, where would you want to start from that?
Okay. Yeah. So let's go into. Well, let's talk about the reptilians. They're, I'm kind of partial to these reptilians, and I'll explain why. Partial to reptilians, what do you mean? Let me unpack that. So as I, I mentioned being a pilot and, with Defense Force, right? And this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And I'm so grateful I have these memories. I crashed out there, so I'm out patrolling in my this junky old craft that I had, that was like this old helicopter that had been retrofitted for Mars. This is the craft I piloted many craft on Mars, but that's the one I remember best for whatever reason. And I'm wired from my head back to Central Command. So that's why I'm allowed to be out, or I and others are allowed to be out piloting alone. They know where I am, but I crashed, and I have a feeling I was shut down. But the beings that picked me up are these reptilians who were native to the planet, and they lived underground. So in my own journals, I write about them is that the reptilians that saved me and also kind of stole me. And really interesting experience with them. With them, they brought me back to their underground, I don't know, I guess I would call it civilization. And I lived with them for a while, and they were not advanced in the ways we think about advancement. They had regressed because they were a small group, there weren't many left, and they were a bit inbred. These reptilians were small, a little bit round. We might consider them from our vantage point here on Earth to be a little bit homely. Nothing like the Draco, not at all like the Draco. And like I said, they didn't have weaponry and craft and tech the way we think of tech, but they had spiritual tech, what I would call spiritual technology. They were interacting with the spiritual energies of Mars, of their planet. Mars being a living being, just like Terra is a living being. We can interact with those energies. And they've been able to create what they needed to survive underground. They had survived a cataclysm on Mars, and that's why they were an isolated group out there. But my memory of being with them is actually some of my best memories from the programs, because they treated me like one of them. I had never experienced this before as a slave. And it's emotional. Like I could feel that now, like, wow, to eat with them and to be in the space with them where in a way they honored me, in a way they didn't. They ended up cannibalizing me for parts, for technology, and they wanted to understand my biology and my tech. Remember, I'm built out with a lot of tech as a cyborg, and I'm cloned at this point. but I lived with them in a state of relative peace for a while. And for me out there, it was like, this is like heaven. And I've you know, I was at a council meeting. I didn't really understand what was going on because they didn't seem to have telepathic communication. I couldn't understand through psychic means what was happening, but there was a meeting about what they should do with me, and it was decided that they should try and, you know, save themselves, right? So we could say that's pretty low, but it's, remember my yardstick, what we're talking about, like all the abuse I'd suffered up to this point. I'm like, this is nothing. This is great. Just keep me here for a while. I don't care. It's just, it was extraordinary to have had, and also that they had, you know, they had water under there. It was a little bit of an oasis. There was something, I mean, like trees underground and a really benevolent environment. This is how I remember them. And like I said, I think they were a pretty isolated group. And I remember them, how it came through my memories was like they wanted to inspect my soul. They wanted to know if I had a soul. And I think partly curiosity got the better of them as far as like taking me apart, so to speak. So I didn't survive that. I wasn't brought back to the base, and the tracking device that would have been with me and in me was broken. And that's why I think they didn't, from the base, come and find me. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. A really extraordinary story.
How about you? Can you describe, I think you've already did it in the previous video, but for people who don't want to go back and listen to it all over again, tell us what they actually look like. How tall were they? What color were they?
Yeah, they were green. They were green and kind of, I would say maybe like 4 feet tall. A lighter yellowy green on their chest, and like a roundness, a little bit of maybe plumpness to them, as I recall. And like I said, no tail. They were quick and nimble. They were there was a grace to how they moved. And they were very much at one with their environment. So, but they lived largely underground. I mean, I think it was a risk for them to come above ground to find me, and you know, but largely they were subterranean.
Do you remember what they called themselves?
No idea what they called themselves. No idea.
Did they ever speak to you? I guess you throw them out, like gruntal sounds or anything?
Yeah, they had. I mean, it was weird. They had their own method of communication with each other, but it wasn't telepathic, and it didn't seem to be like almost like a verbal language. It was like movements, and it was. I mean, we would consider it kind of crude. We would consider it like really, really basic. I'm sure they were communicating complex ideas, but it was through a lot of hand. Like movement of the body, movement of the hand, movement of the eyes. And maybe it was a different color kind of telepathy that I didn't understand. I couldn't pick up on it psychically. I'm really not sure about that. And there was with the guttural sounds, but it was a combination of those things. Really unique kind of something felt really ancient about it. Yeah.
All right. And what kind of food would they serve you?
Yeah, there's something very I remember it as almost like a succulent, this big fat green, like a fat leaf, like a desert plant almost or something. But it was vegetable. It was a vegetable matter that they gave me. Yeah.
So what did it taste like?
Oh, it didn't taste like much. I mean, it was fine. It wasn't. It didn't have much flavor to me. Like either way, it was pretty neutral. You know, wasn't sharp or pungent. It was fine. I would have eaten more happily. I'm sure I did. Yeah.
Okay. Did you see any other people there, human type people?
No, they had never seen a human. I felt like I'd been like dropped out of an airplane into some pygmy tribe, and wherever, like they'd never seen a human. That's why they were like, "What is she?" They're like, "Wow, far out." Like, was it a he or she, or what was I at that point? What it'd be interesting to see myself through their eyes. Like, what must I have seemed like to them, right? Yeah.
Here's a great question from. Oh, okay. I don't know who said it, but anyway, were they vegan?
I don't think that they were, but a lot. We could make an assumption that they were fairly vegetarian because a lot of what I saw there was like vegetable matter. They didn't You know, I think that I think they were opportunists, and probably what happened was that they were able to grow a lot of stuff, and so they adapted to that over time. Remember, this group seemed to be dying out, so I think they would have, you know, if they could hunt above ground or whatever, they would have. Yeah.
All right. And did these reptilians know that you went through a lot of trauma and try to heal you?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they knew I'd been through a lot of trauma. And I'm wondering too if they, from their spiritual perspective, did they also think that they were doing me a favor, you know, by terminating, you know, something that had been, so from their mind, like think about spiritual beings working with the spiritual energy of a planet, you know, something that is so far gone from its original blueprint, you know, are you liberating the thing and liberating its energy to kind of put an end to it? I think that might have been also part of their perspective.
Thomas is asking, do you remember the original Aboriginals, or whatever, the Aboriginal Martians?
I think these are them.
I think actually these were actually olive skin humanoids. Yeah, they can breathe the low oxygen environment just fine. Did you ever encounter any like humans that had this olive colored skin?
Oh, no, excuse me, no. I did not meet them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I guess the next question would be, what did their living quarters look like, or their city?
Oh, it wasn't a city. You know, what I remember is largely like the trees and like really natural, like indigenous environment, very at one with nature. And it wasn't, you know, when I say they were subterranean, it's not like they lived in a cave. It had its own light source. It had water. It had, you know, it was very natural. It was all natural. There wasn't a city. Remember, the group was very small, maybe 30 or 40, you know, it was not by far anything like that you'd have a sophisticated structure for community that would need a city. Yeah.
All right. So when you say they tore you apart, were they like, were they trying to analyze your cybernetics? Were they advanced technologically?
Yeah, no, I think I said that they didn't have any tech, and that's why it was so compelling to them. Like, what is this? Like, this technology is not something we've seen before. I said they didn't have any craft, they didn't have weapons,
Yeah.
They didn't have any of that. They were, yeah. In our terms, we'd say they were a little bit backward, but I would say just observing their spiritual development was exquisite, absolutely exquisite. So we have to rethink what is technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So at that point, I guess they tore you apart and you died.
End of story. Yeah.
Did your soul get transferred back to another clone body? Is that how that works?
It seemed like it naturally went back to, you know, migrating back to where it was supposed to go. And for some reason, they always seemed like they had a dossier of clones at the ready, because I was, you know, I died so many times. Like when I was just like, repeat, let's start over. I mean, I do have memories of being killed, you know, by the spider on Mars, and it's very palpable of like, at first my consciousness has no idea where to go. Over time, like over some moments there, it does know where to go, but it's a pretty disjointing feeling to be in between, in that in between area.
Well, how about this? So let's go to the next topic here. The Mars Defense Force.
Did you want to talk at all about the mantis?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, I'm paused. So go ahead and tell us what. Go. Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'll let her tell us about the mantis and I'm out.
So what?
Yeah. Well, in any order you want, it doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, the mantis were. You know, I mentioned that the reptilians were not so much living in like caves, but the mantis. God, we had so many skirmishes with the mantis over time there, and it seemed endless, the devious ways we were trying to co-opt them and kill them and whatever, experiment on them in a way. They lived in a very upper dimensional subterranean lab. I call it a labyrinth. That's my shorthand with myself, right? Labyrinth. They were also, I mean, I would say we could call them native, but I know that they had come from elsewhere, but so long ago, we might as well consider the mantis native to Mars. They took up residence, from what I observed through my memories and psychically, they took up residence in what I would call like the ancient beings, very, very tall beings that left a lot of beautiful architecture, highly elevated, super advanced, super quantum technology. Those beings, I know they've been called previously by someone else as the ancient builders. They left something behind there on Mars, and the mantids came in at some point, at least the ones that I was familiar with, and co-opted that structure because it had such a high energetic frequency and made it their own. And I remember we were tasked with trying to understand the frequency fence that they had built into the technology of their underground domicile. It protected them, and we were trying to figure out how to defuse it. I know we went over there one time with a POW and like thrust them into the frequency fence, and the POW person being blew up. Again, we're talking about frequency. If you're not in a certain frequency range, you're not going to be able to get through the frequency fence. You're not.
So they had a mantid with them, and they threw it into the frequency fence.
No, we did. We were from Defense Force. We were tasked with going over there and trying to, figure out the technology. And we brought, instead of putting ourselves in harm's way to find out what would happen, we brought a POW from base prison, and threw them, and we were the ones throwing the person into the field to see what happened, and they were terminated. Yeah.
All right. And wow. Okay. So describe what these mantis beings look like.
Yes. I remember them as being kind of beautiful. I mean, they're greenish hue, but I remember them having a light emittance to them. Like there were, I call them elders. We were always trying to get at the mantid elders, because the mantid elders were, let's say, tasked or had the authority over the entire the entire code for the whole group, right? I wouldn't call them a hive mind, but they have a code that keeps them in the unity field, right? And so the elders they always, again, we're talking about elder spiritual race here. That's how I always perceive them. And I have a lot of, I think it's a kind of guilt that we were sent over there to try and kill them. They had no beef with us, man. They didn't. I've drawn a drawing of a mantid elder that has like a robe, like a blue robe on. So the elders seem to have like a higher, somewhat higher status, or, they're just tasked with keeping the group together, keeping the group coherent, again, in a spiritual and dimensional way with frequency. So, and they were tall. They were probably, I don't know, 7 feet tall, taller than I, for sure. And I never felt afraid when I would look at a mantis. Like maybe I got used to looking at them. We also had them on the base. We had them working for us. I remember waking up from some kind of augmentation and having 2 mantids over me, and they were looking at each other, and I could tell they were going, "Oh, do we fuck it up? Like, do we screw this one up? We're going to be in trouble if we did." So we had them on the base as mechanics and techs and surgeons and so on, right? And how we did that is through mind controlling them. I remember going over with Dean, my twin, my psychic twin. We had a small company. We went over there. We gassed them, and then we bombarded them with frequency. This was our orders, not because we wanted to. We were mind controlled slaves, right? Bombarded them with frequency, and in that moment of creating trauma for these mantids, we would inject another frequency that would invert them and allow us to control them, and as many as we could, bring them back to the base. They'd be under a kind of spell or mind control, so we could use them at the base. So it's pretty highly devious, really devious behavior here. Yeah.
All right. So why were you humans, or why were you MDF, or whatever?
Okay, guys, I'm gonna call it quits here. God bless. See you tomorrow, guys. Thanks for watching.